We live in a three-dimensional physical world here, and our will and our intent and the spirit drives us, but everyone needs resources. Any human being, spirit, any human being. Now he's like, go away, boys, I've been drinking. Spirit. And the beam of light, you know, at different times of the year shines onto the floor. Well, the ancient astronomers, the Hohokam, that was called the hole in spot, and that was an ancient archaeoastronomical site, and they were probably watching Venus there as well, and the wandering stars or the planets, right? Ancient archaeoastronomical, three-dimensional physical. They said, what are we going to name this town? And we had a name. You guys know the original name of Phoenix?
Absolutely not.
Pumpkinville. As the sun was setting, and he noticed that there were these lines coming off the river, and lines like intersected kind of like veins. And he went down to the valley, and he started kind of poking around and digging in these veins, and he realized that there was backfill. It wasn't original soil. It was backfilled soil. It was a lot looser. Didn't have huge stones in it. And he discovered the canal system. So what they did is they put the all-seeing eye in the center of an invisible capstone on a pyramid built into the downtown Phoenix area. So what they did is they put the all-seeing eye in the center of an invisible capstone on a pyramid built into the downtown Phoenix area. Put the all-seeing eye.
Hey, Fire Tribe, welcome to Rising from the Ashes. This is the first interview of the month, focusing on this new theme, Syncretism and Esoteric America. And you know you can support us over on Patreon for $3 a month, brand new awesome content. And go and join the Telegram group. We got a great family over there growing every day. Enjoy. You are listening to Rising from the Ashes. You are listening to Rising from the Ashes.
Yeah, man. Well, today on the show we have Cory Daniel from Phoenix Enigma.
Hello.
Well, today on the show we have Cory Daniel from Phoenix Enigma.
Rising, 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 rising. Woo! Rising, rising, rising. Rising from the ashes. Fuck yeah!
Hello, everyone. Welcome to
Rising
from the Ashes. I'm Daniel Nakadan.
And I am the homie Romy. What is going on with you, my brethren?
What up, homie?
Just enjoying the day. Got the last part of the garden planted, so we are cruising for this harvest season. And hey, it's not a biblical drought like these fucktards said, so I love it.
Excellent, man. Well, today on the show we have Cory Daniel from Phoenix Enigma. How you doing, Cory?
Good afternoon, gentlemen. I'm doing well, thank you. Doing well
Excellent,
here.
man.
So I too was in the garden today and tending to the chickens all day long, and I was on the back 40 there trying to get things situated. I put an automatic watering system for the quail and the chickens. So
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
Full day.
They drink a lot, huh? Those little thirsty guys, little
Quail
thirsty
do,
birds.
yeah, quail do. Quail drink a ton. And the ducks get in there and mess it all up. So yeah, I got 3 ducks that just make a mess of everything. The hooligans.
Oh god, there's a something to the duck symbolism and all of like the cartoons. I think there's like some like masonic duck symbolism that I'm unaware of, but I want to get to the bottom of it. Something.
You know what
Crack
I always
that
thought
mystery.
instinctively?
Huh?
instinctively. I mean, we all know the history of Disney, right?
I mean,
Yeah.
what there's the big mystery there. I love it. But yeah, I'm fucking 32nd, or was he the full 33rd?
I think it was full 33rd, yeah. And
Probably.
and you know, just when we'll look at Disney now and what they're doing, leading all the kids to, you know, hell. But I just, and I haven't gone and done the research. Someone else can do this, but I'm just going to give this away here for everyone. If you take the proportions of Mickey Mouse's head and then the 2 ears of the circles, I bet there's something there. My spidey sense is telling me there's a mathematical equation that factors into Masonic symbolism or Pythagorean numerology.
Absolutely.
Just by the ratio of the ears to the head. And it's just something, every time I see Mickey Mouse, I'm like, oh, that was his first character, right? And that,
You know, so Walt was all about the angles and the arches and squaring the circle, right? Because he was, and obviously there was Pythagorean type of like mythos built right into that because of just the style that he drew, and it was all perfect symmetry. And you know, what's funny is I was just down in Florida for a family vacation for the first time. It was fucking epic. I was like, wow, this is spiritual lands out here. I really dig this area. But so we were in this Airbnb, and you know, of course I am the lonely single guy that gets the small room with the children's beds. And it was just a Disney theme, and the wallpaper was just these like sketches of like the original Mickey Mouse, and you know, it was repeated over and over again because it was wallpaper. And so I'm kind of like, when you just said that, I'm visualizing all of these, seeing these early on sketches, and I mean, let alone it's 3 circles, which I think can be like some sort of divination process as well. You know, you got 3 different circles. You got the circle, which is some Western divination type of magic, you know, portals, what have you, and 3, you know, being the strongest number in the universe, you know, for that Trismegistus, that goodness of the 3 there. And yeah, man, I don't know. Actually, that's a really great thing to look at when you're gonna de-occult and demystify the Disney mysteries, that, you know, like maybe the face and the logos of it is one of the bigger mysteries, that it's because it's right there.
Very Atlantean.
Yeah,
right there in full view.
Yes. Oh yeah, concentric rings there. Oh, I see you. I
thought Cory was gonna go Donald Duck route because we're talking about ducks.
Well, the mouse. So yeah, I mean, then you could probably fucking start breaking down like, who are all these characters and why are these animals chosen? Like, were they like members of the Scottish Rite and he's just playing around with his buddies or something?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm sure there's people who have dove into Disney far more than, you know, any of us have. Who knows? There's probably something out there on that.
Well,
people get an itch to dig into something, and I mean, you'd be amazed, you know, like me in Phoenix. You know, I just dug into Phoenix. Who thought to dig into Phoenix? It's only 1 or 2 other guys I know that before me who dug into the Phoenix area, looking for numerology and Masonic ties to the New World Order and the progression of this experiment. And Phoenix ties into that big time. But there's only 2 before me, and we got almost 5.3 million people in Phoenix now, and no one pays attention to anything out there.
That's just baffling to think about, you know, like millions of people and the symbolism just going straight through their transdermal skin into the nothingness, which is within. Kidding, they have lots of goodness within. That's just something I battle with, is like calling people sheep, or like saying that people are so stupid and void of understanding, when really I think it's, you know, we need to maybe, and I'd say I mean, like I need to respect our community a little bit and say, you know what, it's not their fault necessarily. So
yeah, I vacillate on it myself. I mean, I get it. We're under spiritual attack, we're under economic attack, we're under stress attack and biological attack, educational, medical health. I mean, we're attacked even on our leisure time watching television. We are attacked and brainwashed with just, you know, propaganda and or culture conditioning, you know, garbage. So there's that. And, you know, and some days I have a lot of sympathy for everyone out there. And, you know, And other days it's like, screw them, let them all burn. I'm going back to the property. I'm gonna go plant my garden and I'm on my own, it just depends. I'm like everyone else,
Yeah.
but I've been at this for a while. With my work, I my work, you've seen the site. I got into the occulted aspects of Phoenix, the American Southwest, and where occulted history meets Western expansion in Phoenix, and then going back to the ancient days. And then from there, it morphed into politics. And why wouldn't it? And I've been very involved with the January 6th stuff, very involved with the Stop the Steal rally. I took a deviation from this a couple of years back, 2019, and I spearheaded the Isaac Cappy investigation. That was still doing that. And the occultism, and that ties into characters that are leading this country down the path we currently find ourselves in. Isaac Cappy's right there on the nerve. There's all kinds of stuff that I've done in the last 3 years, and I've preached, but I've gone out there and I've told people about COVID, and I've told people about the vaccine, and people I know and love went and got the vaccine, and okay, go get the vaccine, dude, and didn't want to miss a concert, or they had to get that job or whatever.
God, that's the worst excuse too.
Yeah. And those were the two. And I'm like, oh, and that's when I'm like, you can have all the knowledge in the world, but people like you guys and myself and presenters and researchers and YouTubers like us, we're in the thick of it. I mean, we cram our heads with serious crucial knowledge every single day, and we're living on that edge. Most people don't. They just wake up and stumble through life, just either smoking weed all day, or getting blasted all day, or watching wrestling, or just diversion, whatever the diversion is these days. You know what I mean? Dancing with the Stars, use your cliche, whatever it is. And their brains aren't trained. I mean, like I was talking to you a minute ago before we went on air, since 9. When I was 9, I planted an herb garden on the side of the house, and I want to know how things grew and why they worked. I was looking for ancient books at like 10 in the Phoenix Library, right? I was looking for things on a witchcraft and stuff. So I knew there was energy and power and knowledge there. Just most people don't do that. They just take what's given to them, and they learn all the pop songs, and they just go through life as tourists. And it's days like that when that pops in my head. I'm like, yeah, let's let them burn. I'm going to go to my 40 and, and take those that are with me. And, so like I said, I vacillate back and forth.
Well, that's the ebb and flow, man. The vacillation of the sine wave of existence, the reality of understanding, man. Let's do that. Let's start off by giving us go back to that 9, or maybe before 9. Like, what was give us some of your deep history before we kind of touch on some of the modern stuff that we are going to talk about today.
Yeah, how do you get into looking for magic books when you're 9?
Oh,
when I'm 9, I'm playing with Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse, man.
Yeah, he's out here just getting masonic with it, not even knowing.
So I think I saw something on witchcraft back in the day, right? It was in the 85 or 84, somewhere in there. It was a movie. I'm like, whoa, what is that? And then there was another, show or TV. I can't remember what I watched. I remember I called up the Phoenix Library, and I'm like, do you guys have any books on magic? They're like, yes, we have books on magic. It's in the section, you can teach you why. Are you learning how to be? I said, no, books on magic. And I didn't know what the word witchcraft was, right? I never heard witchcraft, and that's what I was looking for, or occulted knowledge, and so finally, and I gave up for a little bit and just went to the library, elementary school in North Phoenix, and found out what I could on mysteries and the Titanic.
Elementary school.
And yeah, but that's all we had, dude. It was the Dewey. How old are you?
Me?
Yeah.
30.
Do you even know what the Dewey Decimal System is?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. All right. So we had the Dewey Decimal System. We had the card catalog. We had to go
the Huey, Dewey, and Louis Decimal System.
And so and then here's the story. I started mowing lawns, and my dad said, if you want a truck when you're 16, you got to start mowing lawns, save your money. So I
Mowing
was mowing
crop
like
circles.
what's that?
You're mowing crop circles
No,
and
like,
putting in
no,
some
I know
sacred
what crop circles were.
geometry into your lawn mowing skills.
No, I know what crop circles were until Art Bell, man, like in the 1992.
Yeah.
But it was I was mowing like 4, 5, 6, 10 lawns a week, and there was this Mr. and Mrs. Slack. That was their name up there in North Phoenix. And Mr. Slack worked for like oil patrol. He was retired, but he was an oil man like in Saudi Arabia or whatever. And his wife was like this English lady. And I mowed their lawn for about a year and a half. And then he died. And my father told me, he's like, hey, you're going to go mow Mrs. Slack's lawn, but you're not going to take any money. I'm like, why? He goes, well, because she's a widow, and we're going to do our part and help her out. I'm like, that ain't fair. You know, I'm out there working. You're not. It's like, you'll understand someday. So I went and mowed her lawn, and first time she's like, here, of course, no, I can't take it on account that you're a widow and all. And she's like, I see, my dad won't let me. She's like, oh, I see. Okay. She goes, well, I'll tell you what, you come every Saturday when you mow my lawn, I'll make you lunch. How's that? I said, great. Well, that lunchtime turned into a lesson. She had an herb garden out back and a sage garden, a lavender garden, and she grew onions. Oof. And she was a kitchen witch. Looking back now, she taught me infusions and decoctions and salves and poultices. And she showed me one time, she had me dig this hole, and she said, all right, dig this hole, cover it, put the dirt back in, level it off, but don't pack it. I'll come back tomorrow. We came back the next day, and the dirt was concaved in. Like, whoa, what's that? She said, it was the moon. It was the new moon. It was the gravitational pull. It pulls dirt too, not just water. And then next full moon, we did it again. It was convexed out. She taught me things like you cut certain plants when the water's down in the leaves due to the gravitational pull. So she taught me quite a bit about plants and herbs and of the English tradition. And I looked around and said, I'm in the Sonoran Desert here, and there's got to be something that the Native Americans used. And that's when I went down the Native American, plant botany. And again, I didn't know there was a word for this. It's called ethnobotany, the study of the relationships between plants and people for edible, medicinal, utilitarian, spiritual purposes. I had no idea what ethnobotany was. So I'm just looking for books on plants. And of course, there was Yule Gibbon stalking the wild asparagus and stalking that was all for the East. The East and the Northeast had a ton of books out there, but there was nothing on the Southwest until the early 90s when Michael Moore and Charles Kane out of Tucson, in fact, they still teach there now. And they put out, the ethnobotany of the American Southwest, and then ethnobotany of the Pima. Then I found out, oh wait, there's like books by college professors on the Native Americans. So there's the official ethnobotany of the Pima, ethnobotany of the Zuma, ethnobotany of the Hopi, and that's when I went and dug all those and cross-referenced, the common names with the Latin names and started learning what the plants in the area were for. So, and when you get into botany, that will always go into pharmakia. It'll always go into witchcraft. It always goes into energy, the land, putting your hands, lunar cycles. It just naturally goes there, and that's kind of the path. That was my early trajectory.
I had a little thought about pharmakia earlier, and Egypt being like the epicenter of alchemy and that type of stuff, and sciences, I guess you could say too. Pharaoh and pharma aren't too far different from each other. I wonder if there's a connection there between pharma and Pharaoh.
I don't know. I know pharmakia is Greek.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So
but
I don't know.
Greeks were heavily influenced by the Egyptians.
Oh, it was the next culture,
Yeah.
If we are currently in that same culture. People don't understand. I told someone that yesterday, in fact, and I just blew them away. I said there was Samaria to Egypt, and Egypt to Greece, and Greece to Rome, and Rome to England, and England to the United States. Like we are the incarnation of all that before us. Just go look at Washington. Go look at the Western system that we currently live in. So.
And then our homage to, our the thing that everybody uses and worships, the dollar bill, has these. It has Greek writing, it has the pyramid, it has, it has things from the Roman Empire. It's like the things, everything that you just mentioned is absolutely part of that. So anybody that can't, can't conceptualize that. It's just like, okay, well, you literally just need to flip over your dollar to see where the roots come from. But why is it so hard? Why is it such a crazy thing to think that our people that run the world, or people that run the government, wouldn't pay homage to the ancient Egyptians and the ancient? It's like they created everything that we know, and we are just standing on the backs of giants. Like, we should respect the fact that our leaders have that homage, and yet we pay homage to it as well, because it's so mysterious and fascinating. Like, I don't know, like, it's obviously societal engineering that has made us that way, because the more that we focus on ancient alchemy and those ancient cultures, the more that we're going to empower ourselves, right? Or at least that's the story, because we can't become empowered, because then we're less sheepy, or cattly, or what have you. But I don't know, if we can go into the Phoenix stuff, let's start with the name, right? Like, this, it's obviously very, very close to home for us, and but what, like, there's more to this name. Like, is Phoenix the Phoenix of the country? Like, why do you think the name got chosen there?
Oh, that's a big question, my friend.
Yes.
That's a huge question there.
And dog's like, yup.
Yeah, a dog sounding off there. It was, well, let me see here. Let me get this up here. Okay. Phoenix, the word Phoenix means red, right? From the Phoenicians, right? It means red. Yeah. And they used to slather themselves in the red pigment when they would sail and for fighting and looking all tough and whatever, right? The story of the Phoenix is that it will rise. It's a bird that lives for 1,000 years or 500. It's a takeoff of the Benu, right? The Benu bird was the first one, then the Phoenix was the second, said to have lived. And people said that they saw the Benu back in the day. And like, according to Egypt, I'm going to read here, Egyptian mythology, the Benu was a self-created being said to have played the role in creation of the world. And then there's even was it Socrates? One of those guys like wrote about it and said that it was described to me as blah, 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 blah. But it was supposed to be this purplish color, and the emblem for Phoenix is purple. Well, how we got that name was the founding fathers of Phoenix were Lord Daryl Dupa and Jack Swilling. Jack Swilling, and these guys were polar opposites but they were like best friends. And these were the early, there was two waves of frontiersmen, settlers of the Phoenix area. The first was the rough and tough Apache fighting first guys, and that was Swilling and Dupa. Dupa was a 33rd degree Scottish Rite Freemason. In fact, he's buried in the Masonic cemetery right next to the great grandson of Benjamin Franklin.
Oh, wow.
Downtown Phoenix. Yeah. Yeah. And his house, what's left of it, the old adobe house, is the oldest standing structure in Phoenix over on First Street and just south of Lincoln. It's in the back of this neighborhood next to it used to be a Hispanic cultural center. I don't know what it is now, but I think they're going to save it. Hopefully they've been doing some work on it. But Jack Swilling, he was a bipolar psychopath who came out here. He was a veteran from the Mexican War, and I think he got busted for deserting even. And he was a brawler and got his head cracked open in a fight in Missouri. Colonel Snively brought him out here to fight Apaches and save him from himself and the drinking. But he had a bullet lodged up against his spine. He'd been stabbed a couple of times. Like I said, he had his head cracked in half.
Frankenstein.
So his doctor gave him opium or laudanum and a whiskey and said, mix it together and drink as needed for pain. So he was like this total drug addict and alcoholic. And these two found themselves, I'll skip all the other history here, but they found themselves up on the Pueblo Grande platform mound at 44th Street in Washington, along with there's about 20 some odd other guys there that were the founders of Phoenix at that time. And they said, what are we going to name this town? And we had a name. Do you guys know the original name of Phoenix?
Absolutely not.
Pumpkinville.
What?
It's Pumpkinville, yeah.
I mean, I guess it
Pumpkinville.
started with the
Good
P.
thing it got changed.
Yeah, right. Pumpkin was brought out here to feed horses and cattle. And if you've ever had garden and pumpkins, you miss one, they reseed readily, and they come up volunteer everywhere. So pumpkin grew all along the Salton, the Gila River. So it was Pumpkinville because they were all over the place. That's kind of what people took. The original Phoenix was south of South Mountain now in the Gila area, and it was a horse trading station. That's what basically it was on the Butterfield Overland Express wagon that came through on the way to San Francisco, right? That's what Phoenix was before it moved north of South Mountain. So then the town of Swilling was there, about 2.5, 3 miles east of downtown Phoenix, and his town burned down. The Swilling settlement burned down. So they're up there, and Swilling's like, let's name it Swilling. They're like, no, Swilling, we're not going to name another town after you. If we had time, I could tell you about Swilling. He was a lunatic. Another guy stands up and says, hey, let's name it Stonewall, right? Because most of the people out west were veterans from the War of Northern Aggression, otherwise known as the Civil War up in the north, right? But they said, nah, man, the war's over. So they almost named it Salina, which was Latin for salty, because the Salt River. Now, the Salt River is not salty, but they call it the Salt River because the Native Americans used to go up the river to where the salt mines were at, and they would bring salt down. So that was called the Salt River. And Lord Dupa stands up, and what were his, hold on, let me find the exact words here. He stands up and says, gentlemen, this canal was constructed in an age now forgotten. Prehistoric cities lie in ruins all around you. A great ancient civilization once thrived in this valley. Let the new city arise from its ashes. Let it be called Phoenix. And then
Boom.
Pulled out his dictionary, and he looked up the spelling of it, and he's like, all right. And he wrote it down. It was Phoenix. And that's how Phoenix was born. The name, anyway. I have a sneaky suspicion that the area that is now Phoenix is not an accident. I think there is ancient ruins here that predate what we believe to be the oldest civilization here, the ancient Hohokam Native Americans that lived in this valley between about 300 BC and 1425 AD. They're known for building the canal system. They had there's a canal system that's under the canal system that's in Phoenix now. And they hand dug over 1,000 miles of canals by hand. About 200 miles of those canals were 50 to 70 feet across.
Wow.
By 10 to 20 feet deep. That's 200 miles is Phoenix to Flagstaff. That's big. And those were called trunk canals because they truncated into the Salt River. There's about another 800 miles of canals that stretch all the way up to, that stretch off of that. And those are called feeder canals and feeder ditches, and about 800 miles of those. And they were about 10 to 20 feet across, 5 to 10 feet deep, respectively. And they irrigated about 100,000 acres of land. Now, Phoenix, we don't have soil in Phoenix. We have dirt. Compacted, hard, cement-like dirt. We get about 10 inches of rain a year. And under that dirt is caliche, right? It's a clay, for those you don't know, from one of the last oceans that was here. And it's about 4 to 6, 7 feet deep in certain parts of the valley. And you need a jackhammer to get through it. Or you spend all day digging. It's hard. It's really hard. It's not easy to dig here. But when Jack Swilling was coming from Wickenburg, town to the west, back to Phoenix one day, he was in the White Mountains coming down, and he was looking down into the valley as the sun was setting, and he noticed that there were these lines coming off the river, and lines like intersected kind of like veins. And he went down to the valley, and he started kind of poking around and digging in these veins, and he realized that there was backfill. It wasn't original soil. It was backfilled soil. It was a lot looser. Didn't have huge stones in it. And he discovered the canal system. He started up the Swilling Ditch Company, and he started digging out the old canals and running water off of the Salt River and to people's farms. And that was a big part of how Phoenix grew.
Wow.
Swilling was hyper industrious. He was the first postmaster until he shot someone for not voting for him. He might have been the mayor at one point.
Classic Swilling.
Oh God.
Going postal.
Yeah, he beat a guy who besmirched a woman's character in the street. He was in Wickenburg. I gotta tell you the story. He was in Wickenburg and he'd been fighting with these other cowboys. There's three of them, and they showed up. He was at the People's Saloon. That was it was a name of that was a surname. The People's. There's People's Valley and People's Canyon and People's. Half the area around Wickenburg's named after the People's. And he was in the People's Saloon. He was like the only one in there drinking because he was an alcoholic. And the three guys were out front. They said, "Jack Swilling, you better get out here. Let's do it now. Let's do it now." He's like, "Go away, boys. I've been drinking." And by this time, like the sheriff showed up and like everyone was like surrounded. And he says, "We're going to come in and get you." And all of a sudden, Swilling just burst out of the door with his 12 gauge and just dropped the big guy off his horse, grabbed his 6-shooters and shot the other two and dead. And he went over to the big guy. He took his knife out. And he was shit-faced and he cut the ear off the big guy and he held it up and said, "Some bitch didn't eat it anyway. She never listened to a thing I said." And he got tackled and they put him in jail. But he was in jail off and on for shit like that. And they would sober him up. And a big thing that they did when he would fall off the wagon, because he was known to abuse his wives. He's married twice, and he'd get heavy-handed with them.
Oof.
And when he did, his wives would go to his friends and say, "Hey, can you take him out into the desert and sober him up?" So what they would do is they would go out to the outskirts, north to Black Canyon and New River and the Bradshaw Mountain area, because that's where all the Apache fight took place into Wickenburg. They would find their old comrades that died during the Apache wars that they buried under trees and stuff. And they would exhume the bodies, put them in a bag, bring them back and give them a proper Christian burial. They did that like 7 times to sober Jack up. They would take him out there. It would be like a 2-week deal and he'd come back sober. He'd be great. He started like mines. He had like all these mines. He had a mill they were milling all the grain. He had farms. He was the postmaster.
Were they doing like any sort of like meditative practices or anything out there? Or were they just like camping and just shooting shit with the boys?
Just camping and not drinking, back to wartime buddies, and that's part of the reason why he got put in jail eventually. And he died in prison, actually, in the Yuma prison, under false allegations. But he did that several times and to sober him up. But that's the early roots of Phoenix right there. Right about when Jack went to go get Colonel Snively. He was living up in Black Canyon City, and he had been getting heavy-handed with his wife. And so a guy named Monroe, and some kid, I forget his name, he was some kid wandering through town, decided to take Jack out. And the plan was to go around to Wickenburg, dig up Snively's body. It was what's now under Lake Pleasant, and then come back to the Bradshaw Mountains looking for mineral in the Bradshaws and drop back down into Black Canyon City, which is on the east side of the Bradshaw Mountains. And they did the whole thing and came back and brought Snively and gave him proper Christian burial. And about a day and a half later, the posse, sheriffs were behind them. They said, "Who came out of these mountains?" They said, "Well, that was the Swilling party. There was a Swilling expedition to get Snively." And they said, "Well, there's been a murder and a robbery." And basically they accused Snively, Monroe and that kid, I forget his name, and Jack, of holding up a stagecoach running out of Wickenburg due to the heat and the Apaches. The stagecoaches would leave Wickenburg at nighttime, just as the sun was going down. And they would top this hill and drop down over because you can get further on a horse at night, because it's not hot out. And the Apaches wouldn't attack at night either on the roads. And there was a holdup, but as the stagecoach is going up the hill and the sun setting in the west, they're going due west. The sun is in their eyes and they're going uphill. It's the perfect ambush point if you're going to rob them. Yeah. And that's where the stagecoach had been robbed several times prior, and it got robbed there again. And they followed, they followed him back and they threw him in jail. It was a big brouhaha. Jack went up to Prescott, and the Prescott guy's like, "Jack Swilling rob somebody? Are you guys insane?" "Yeah, he's a lunatic, but he ain't a thief. He sure as hell ain't gonna shoot anyone innocent." So they let him off. But there was this group of politicians and bankers and gentlemen who'd moved into Phoenix, and they wanted to take Phoenix in a different direction. Now, this was the Masonic group here that had come in. And my research, I'm still tracking down all the names, but you get back, it's hard to find who people were back in the Old West. There's just not a lot of data. And you just have to speculate on quite a bit of it through what happened afterwards. And they basically hired someone to go out there, and they hired a surveyor to say that the robbery took place like in the next county over. It was 50 feet over. And so he got tried in the Yuma County. And because he said, I'm not guilty. Yeah, I'll go. I'll stand trial again. So Monroe and Swilling went to Yuma, and they were in jail. Monroe got out a few weeks later because they didn't want him. They wanted Swilling. It was just a witch hunt. And he figured he'd be out of there in just a month, or a couple of weeks. Turned into 2 months, turned to 3 months. He's losing weight. Some people think he was poisoned by his doctor, who brought him opium. And he started getting thinner and thinner and thinner. And he wrote this letter. And there's if you go online, you can find it. It's an open letter to the public, people of Phoenix, from Jack Swilling. And it's sad, man. It's like this, he says, I'm afraid I'm going to die in here. There's obviously a conspiracy out to get me. I'm paraphrasing here. What'll happen to my poor wife and children? On and on, but I've been done wrong. I didn't do what they're accusing me of. He said, I've killed a number of people, but they weren't white men, only Mexicans and Indians. It was a different time, right? And they didn't let him out, and there was pressure to keep him in there. And Jack Swilling died. He died. He was this huge man, huge hulk of a man. And he died at like 95 pounds or 80 pounds or something. Like, he wasted away in there. Wow. And he was buried in a empty, just a blind grave. And I don't think they ever exhumed the body. It's still over there somewhere over there. I think they put a headstone where they think he was buried. But what's interesting is about a month and a half, 2 months later, I think, if my memory serves me right, there was some kids that were, I say kids, in their early 20s, late teens, arrested over in, I think, Kansas City or Dodge City, somewhere over there. And they had a whole bunch of money they shouldn't have had. So when they interrogated them, they found out that they confessed to robbing that stagecoach. And they followed the Swilling party down out of the mountains and kept going. And they shot down to Phoenix and to Tucson. And from Tucson, they started heading to the Midwest, and that's where they got busted. So Jack Swilling, the founding father of Phoenix, died in a Yuma prison for a crime he didn't commit. That'd be a great movie too. And that's a movie no one's ever made. But
let me ask you this, because so the founding fathers, Swillings and Snevely, and these, like, I'm kind of glad that these names died out in antiquity, because I have a hard enough time just having my name. I'm actually looking to change my name sometime soon. I kind of want to go a whole new route and legally change things. Anyways, complete side tangent, but he wasn't part of the Masons. They came in later and kind of just were like assessing the city and decided to.
So I think Dupa might have been. Dupa was a 33rd, 32nd, 33rd. I hear both. And he's buried in the Masonic section of the the Phoenix Cemetery. But Dupa was he was the 12th son of a baron or a lord over in Wales. He was Welsh, and his dad basically said, hey, you're like the youngest son, and there's nothing for you here. You got to go out in the world and make your way. You need to go to Australia, and I think it was Australia, to our sheep holdings, and we have a sheep ranch over there and a gold ranch, a gold mine. Go over there and run that for a while. So he did. And then, but he was all about adventure. So he jumped on a boat, and he went from Australia up to, well, it capsized. It 10 miles off the coast of Chile. I think that when the boat went over, and he swam 10 miles back to shore, and he almost died of pneumonia. And he had nothing. And he got better, and he grabbed a steamer, went up to San Francisco, and from San Francisco, he made his way to Prescott, Arizona, and that's where he met.
I've been to Prescott.
Yeah, named after, I think, William Prescott, who never set foot there, who was a Mason as well. And I think it's William. William, yeah, it's gonna be. Yeah, it's William. And anyway, but he spoke 5 languages. He carried the classics around in their original languages. He'd get drunk and quote Shakespeare by the hour, drinking whiskey in the bars. He was highly educated. And they called him a lord there. He wasn't a lord, but they called him a lord dude because he told everyone he was a lord. And if you have an English accent in the Old West and you can quote Shakespeare by the hour, well, call yourself a lord. People are going to believe you're a lord.
Yeah,
So he was
for real.
a very colorful character. I think Dupa may have had his sights on Phoenix. Now, something didn't come together for me about, I mean, I've been following Phoenix, the architecture here, the pyramid that's in the street, you know, and the other symbolism in the street system that we have in downtown Phoenix, and it was expanded upon. But what I didn't understand was its connection to DC and what it means. Until the John McCain de-occulting that I did. John McCain made his life here in Phoenix, Arizona. We all know John McCain, right?
Is he from Phoenix? I was unaware of that.
I think he was from here. I think he just moved here, but I don't think he was from here. But he was his father, his grandfather, his great grandfather. 2 of them were admirals. You don't become an admiral in the Navy unless you're a 33rd degree Scottish Rite Freemason. They were also a plantation owner down south, so he came from slave owners back in the old day. But anyway, McCain said himself, I had the luxury of or the opportunity. Is it the luxury? I think it was a luxury to plan my own funeral. I know I'm going to die like in a month or two here. And I get to plan my own funeral. Remember it was a big deal that he didn't want Trump to come to his funeral. He specifically said Trump is not invited. Do you recall that?
You're gonna try to fuck his wife afterwards or something.
No, Cindy McCain, she's not a bad looker for her age.
Trump's coming for you, baby.
But there was strife there because McCain isn't a Republican. Everyone says, oh, he's a rhino. He's a globalist. Rhinos are globalists. They're not, that's what they are.
Rhino?
Rhino, Republican in name only.
Oh, okay.
Mitch McConnell, he's a rhino. Doug Ducey of Arizona, he's a rhino. So they're these rhinos that come up and they talk all tough about the Republican Party, but then when it comes time to making the decisions that are going to have a lasting effect, they side with the Democrats every time, and they always fold. And they let the Democrats move that position. But the Democrats are used to move it to a globalist agenda. So it's not getting political here. I mean, personally, I'm right of the spectrum, but I'm not a Republican. The Republicans are just a controlled opposition party. People need to get out of that left-right paradigm and realize it's about freedom and tyranny. That's the only 2 parties, freedom and tyranny. Anything that gives you freedom, vote for it. Anything that takes it away, it's tyrannical, period. It's that simple. So anyway, McCain dies on the 25th, I think it was, 24th, 25th of June. Oh my God, I write all this stuff down as I'm researching because there's no way any human being could remember all this. It just can't, Yeah,
that's what I love. I love those time capsules of journals. You go back and just able to flip back in those memories. Like there are some special cases where some people are able just to spout off, but I love it. I love the time capsule of the handwrite, man. It's very important. Very, very, very important. John McCain, though, man, I bet his funeral was loaded up with some people, even though Trump wasn't there.
It was 5 days. It was longer than
shit.
Reagan's funeral.
Wow.
Yeah, Reagan had like this 3-day funeral, right, where everyone in the whole country came from. But so he died on August 25th. He dies on a day of Saturn. It was a Saturday. 26th, 27th, 28th was the period of rest. 29th, they flew his body. 29th, he laid in state under the Arizona Capitol. Okay. So he died on the 25th, 26th, 27th, 28th for 3 days or 72 hours. His body sat Who else died and laid in rest for 3 days before he rose again?
Was that Jesus? I think
He was 33 years old when he died. Yeah, Jesus. Right. So
nailed it.
right.
Nice,
So
nice.
he lies in rest for 33 days. What else? The sun, the actual sun, on December 21st, it hits the lowest, right, on the winter solstice, and for 3 days the human eye cannot see it moving back up. So for 3 days the sun appears to not move in the southern sky as it rises every single day on the azimuth, right? So then it starts rising up again, and then on the 25th the sun begins rising. What's the 25th? Oh, right, it's Christmas, right? Jesus' birthday. So if you study astrotheology, and I don't want to offend Christians here, but when you study astrotheology long enough, you realize that Christianity is a modern day solar worshiping religion that was just repackaged and redeployed and remarketed for this new 1,000-year period. That's where we're at right now. And it follows all the same symbolism and rituals that were used back in ancient Egypt, like we talked about when we first started here. So John McCain dies. For 3 days, his body rests. On the 29th, he lays in state in the Arizona Capitol under the rotunda. We have the copper dome, right? We actually have a dome on the Capitol, right? The next day is taken to the North Phoenix Baptist Church. That was his church. And then on the 31st, he's flown to the U.S. Capitol, where he lays in state for 24 hours under the dome at the U.S. Capitol.
I got to touch up on this. So, super fascinating that you brought up that his body needed to be under the rotunda, under the dome, because that definitely corresponds with this other crazy story that I heard about. Henry Flagler is this guy who founded the town of St. Augustine, Florida, and which was like one of the first cities in the country, which blew my mind. And he, after he passed away, he needed to be brought into his building. He built this beautiful hotel with a rotunda, classic, like neoclassical, or not neoclassical, but like neo-Gothic or what have you, neo old beautiful architecture, and to be put under his rotunda. Okay. And so a spirit could like move around. And that just seems to be, I don't know if that happens to just correlate with these Masons, like if that's the reason why they put these rotundas in these buildings, so then later their spirits can whirl around in them. But I know that it correlates with
there's a book,
the Native Indigenous belief about spirits moving in circles as well.
It's harmonics. There's a book written, and I forget the name of it, or even the author at this point, and I keep meaning to read it, but I know it's out there, and I've heard him speak on his shows. When they broke down the frequencies that are generated when speaking in the Capitol under the dome, it lends to clarity of thought. It actually makes your mind sharper. There's actual measurable acoustics in there. Yeah, that's not just a building that happened to be built. It's built on with sacred frequency and principles in there. That's why it is. But let me finish my thought here on McCain. There's two things with this ritual that he designed himself. Okay, so 3 days of rest, 1 day, 24 hours under the Arizona dome, another day at the church, and then flies over to the U.S. Capitol, where he's under there for 24 more hours. When they laid his body under the U.S. Capitol, he was simultaneously the 13th senator to ever lie in state there, while being the 33rd person to ever lie in state. Only 33 people have ever lied in state under the U.S. Capitol. And so far, McCain's the last one. However, being the last one, he was also the 13th senator to lie in state there. Within the Freemasons, there are two paths you can go on. Your path, your right, which has 13 degrees, or the Scottish Rite, which has 33 degrees. Think that's an accident that John McCain laid in state simultaneously, the 13th and the 33rd person? Now, going back to the Phoenix, we talked about Phoenix a minute ago. the naming of Phoenix. What does the Phoenix do? The Phoenix lives for 1,000 years. It bursts into flames. It burns to ashes, right? And then a baby is born from those ashes, and once it burns to ashes, it's for 72 hours, right? It rests for 72 hours, and then the baby comes out of the ashes, and then it flies east to Heliopolis, where it finds the pyre and it turns into a bird again. John McCain designed a funeral where he was the Phoenix. He died. 3 days later, he rose, and his body literally fucking flew to Washington, D.C., to the east.
To the Heliopolis, basically, the fucking USA Capitol.
There you go.
With a golden dome.
So,
shit.
So if you go on Google Earth and you take a line and you do your you know how you can do the little measurement thing at the top, click on that, click on the center of the US Capitol, okay? Come straight west out of that US Capitol along, right down the mall, right? The reflection
West
pool
Mall. Yeah.
and all the way down through the Lincoln Memorial, and keep going across the entire country. There's only one building with a dome you're going to hit. It goes right into the Phoenix State Capitol. The Phoenix State, the Arizona State Capitol in Phoenix is directly lined up due west, coming out of due west. All the way across the entire country. Phoenix is linked with DC.
What a
metaphysically.
Trip. What a trip.
Yeah. And if you go to my, I got the photos on there. If you go to my, my website, thephoenixenigma.com, it's totally free. Go on there, check it out. All my work, guys, is transparent and free. There's no paywall or nothing. Maybe I should be here, but it's all free. And it's just what I've been doing, just putting it all together and doing, I don't get paid for none of this. And all the photos are there. I lay out the entire ritual. There's also the ritual with what's his name?
It seems like there should be another city where this all triangulates at. Is there a third city? Seems like DC to Washington or DC to Phoenix would be one part of the triangle. And then if you add a third point, then it would create another a giant triangle over the country.
I looked and I couldn't find it. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I just couldn't find it. Maybe someone else can find it, but people will email like someone say, "Hey, oh, Cory, you missed this." I'm like, "Oh, boom, I did," because different eyes see different things. We all have different knowledge sets. So if anyone finds it, by all means, shoot me an email and I'll edit the article here. It takes a village, right? So
yeah, it definitely does.
You said Phoenician is red, and then I heard you say also purple.
The Banu. The Banu bird was purple. Yeah.
Because I've heard other people say that the Phoenician color was purple also and not red. I always thought it was red.
I thought it was red too.
But it's actually purple?
The Banu was a purple bird, and the insignia for the city of Phoenix is purple. It's a purple phoenix, which is going to the Egyptian Banu, right? Not just the phoenix. So it goes back even older than the phoenix.
Yeah, because I think sometimes red and purple are the same with like wine. So they like to drink a lot of wine, and like the deep purple and the red were somewhat similar in color.
Yeah, they definitely they have the root of purple is red, and then you add blue, different shades of blue, you get that alchemical play. So yeah, maybe there's something with the adding of the spirit to that, or I don't know. It's beautiful, but the thing is, I think things transmute into each other. So it's like the finite details, are obviously important, but I think things can cross correlate. You don't have to be like red, only one shade of red. It's like, there's different shades and different variants of colors. It's okay. But I also want to mention that I look into these old architecture
too, because it blows my mind. I love it. I think there's something connected with old architecture and just the old alchemical ways of being. You know, our ancestors were tapped into some deep understanding of physics and the earth and electro battery. But I got when I was on my way to Florida not too long ago, I got stranded in Denver because our flight got delayed for 24 hours, and I was like, okay, I'm in the Mile High City. I've never been here before, and you know, I'm walking around and go to see this huge, you know, Capitol building with a fucking golden dome, and you go stand on there, you get to the Mile High step, about like 15 steps up or something. Is probably more of a significant number. I probably should have counted, but look at me being a lazy piece of shit. Anyways, you get there and you look straight down and you see, what do you see? You see an obelisk, right? And then below that is a huge other building that's very similar to the neoclassical style that the Capitol building is. And it's like all of these Capitol buildings, they all look, I mean, I'm talking exactly the same. They look exactly the same. They're built exactly the same. They have the gold domes and everything. And they obviously hold very significant value to the people that know what is going on and that pull the strings. And enough so that John McCain would say that his body needs to be in the rotunda specifically. You know, it just blows my mind. And but what is the purpose of these the buildings, do you think, to these masons? Like what have you found that correlates these? Is it just a homage to the ancient Greeks, or what do you think?
I've thought a lot about that over the years. It's back in the day. If you were to take over a land, we would sail our ships and our warriors on those ships over, and we'd get off and we would take our swords out and cut people up till they lost enough blood and died. Then we would, you know, take the women and build a castle on that land. We build a castle, an actual physical castle, where we would fortify it, and then we would exert our power from that defensive position. And we would exert the power from there, and we would begin taxing and taking the resources. It's all about resources. We live in a three-dimensional physical world here, and our will and our intent in the spirit drives us, but everyone needs resources. We have to eat, we have to breathe, we have to sleep. You know, we're very fragile creatures, thin-skinned mammals with opposable thumbs. So it's always about the control of the resources and building towards a better system or a different system that will maximize those resources. And like what I believe Bill Gates believes he's doing today. And we talk about Bill Gates later if you want. We have time. He just bought a huge chunk of land on the west side of Phoenix named Belmont, and he's going to build this futuristic city over there.
Oh God.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Why in Phoenix? Why outside of Phoenix?
Belmont.
So we did that for years and years and years, but now we bring corporations over. The corporation is the entity, and we exert will and force and power through banking. And through as we become more civilized, we utilize this paradigm, this structure. And but you still need buildings. You still need buildings. Masons were originally masons, right? And when they were building those castles back in the old days, you know, you couldn't build very high because you didn't have the stability. So they had the keystone, right? And the keystone was the key to building an arch that would support itself, and you could take weight. So you build a bunch of arches, you can build a second level on top of that, and the third level. They had, they had the geometry and the mathematics to build and to fortify, and probably more than we even know now with the frequencies, in the chambers. And they would built along the lines of the solstice and the equinox, and they would measure like the library does down in downtown Phoenix now. That's a solar library. On the solar on the summer solstice, there's no shadow at a solar noon. They shine on the pillars. They have no shadow at all. But then on the side walls on the winter solstice, or is the equinox, I can't remember, it comes all the way down. The light comes all the way down both sides of the wall, the way it was designed. So you see sun worship, right, built into the architecture. And there's something very powerful about architecture. Like when you walk into a Catholic, cathedral, there's a power there. There's a resonance there. It's a place for people's mind and intent to stay when they pray or go into meditation. That's what prayer is. It's a meditation, right? It's a guided meditation. Everyone praying towards one thought form. I a student of the occult. I think it's hilarious when Christians talk about witches and covens, yet they all sit there and pray together in a church
and do rituals and eat the body of Christ and drink his blood. Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, and they and they burn incense, right?
Yeah.
And wizards wear hats, and the Pope wears a hat, and the wizards wear robes, and the Pope wears a robe, and the wizard has a staff, and the Pope has a staff, and he burns his incense, and it's like, how I don't get it, you condemn witchcraft, and here you are. So I think there's a lot going on there with the building and the construction, and I think it is a way to power. I think it's a vehicle to power. I do.
Just to stay on the bird thing before we jump off into another subject here, you mentioned that the only way to be an admiral in the Navy is to be the 33rd degree, and made me instantly think of Admiral Byrd, who's also a bird, right? He's flying. Is there any significance there to something Masonic with Admiral Byrd? Maybe possibly being a Mason, and then maybe how much value or how much trust can we put into all of the things that he said about Inner Earth and Antarctica and whatnot? I mean,
I only know what I've seen in documentaries on Byrd. He's a fascinating character. I know he did go down there, and we know he talked about land beyond. He did. I've watched the interview out of his own mouth. He talked about land beyond the ice wall. And that when people go down there, and he said when young men go down there and explore, they're going to find a lifetime worth of exploration going. That's where I'd go if I was young right now. And there's more land to be seen down there. He knew something. As far as him being a Mason, I don't know. I've not looked into that. I've not looked into it. So I can't tell you one way or another on that.
Yeah. Interesting though.
If you,
because of the bird part too, it connects into the idea of, reaching the 33rd degree and then becoming spirit, becoming a bird. It's connected with the Bennu birds. It's connected with all the birds, taking the soul to the soul hole and everything like that. So
yeah,
it's just an interesting idea because a lot of people, you always hear people say like you can never believe a Mason or whatever they say. So just because he said it doesn't make it true.
Yeah. You can believe Masons on certain things. They're not.
That's not me personally. I'm just saying people.
Sure. Yeah. They're not all duplicitous evil liars. I mean, Masonry is many things to many people at many different times in their lives at many different levels of Masonry. It's not the same thing. It is Masonry is, and this is a chapter on this in my book that I'm writing. Masonry is a system that gleans men from the world and makes them better, gives them structure, gives them camaraderie, and gives them knowledge. That's the point of it. And the way Masonry is designed, to become a Mason, you got to do three things. You have to be male, right? You have to knock on their door. You have to ask them. They won't ever come recruit you. You have to ask them. And then you have to believe in a higher power, whatever that power is. Just you have to believe there's something beyond this world. That's the oath that you take. And then you can become a Mason. From there, when you're in Masonry, you determine your level of involvement. And as, if you have someone 1 out of 10 who's a 5 on the intellectual, level or the ability level, there's men who do things like Trump, right? And there's men that don't, like the guy at Circle K who's just a cashier. Not, I know we need those guys, but he's not Trump, right? There's different levels in life and people doing different things. If you're at a 5 there and you're interested, they're going to put you in a spot where they can use you and you're trusted, right? You're going to have a home there. But if you're capable and intelligent and smart and good looking and have money, you're going to be put up higher in the organization.
So you're saying I can get really high in the Masonic.
You can get high in the Masonic, yeah. And however, if while you're going through these, and I have verified this, as you're going through the degrees, you don't know necessarily what the right answer is when you answer these questions. And if, let's say you're going from the 16th to 17th degree, and they ask you a question and you answer wrong, they'll say, thank you. And you come out and they'll say, congratulations, you're now a 17th degree Mason. But they put you on what's called the dark path.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So, and if you answered right, you'd been on the real 17th degree, but instead you're on the dark path. And from there, it's empty knowledge. It's just ritual.
Esoteric kind of differences there.
Yeah. And only people on the real path within Masons are going to get those jobs and be trusted to do things like, I don't know, like build, new companies and infrastructure to control certain aspects of the economy and resources in new areas. They'll get those deals, and the other people, they'll just be members. They'll be given smaller stuff. So they don't ever exclude you, but you're not really on that right path. So they do lie to each other as well. But if you want to go higher in the Masonic, if you want to climb that ladder, you can. You get into it you get out of it what you put into it. And that was told to me, by the way, by a 33rd degree Mason when I was on tour one day.
Wow.
Degree Mason.
It's funny about that is like we do that in every kind of social clique too, like if a high school sports team, for example, you got the guys that are really good, and they're hanging out after practice and after games, and they're doing they're stalking these certain chicks, and they might do some really weird shit that only that little small group of friends knows that they're doing, and that it's very human. And I think that's what the crazy thing about Masonry is. It's literally very naturally a very human thing to do, is to create this little club, or not a little club, but, to create some sort of something to make it more sacred, because, we're very spiritual creatures. And I think it's really important. I mean, I plan on at least joining a lodge at some point, just to obviously see what's going on, because I've heard enough now to know that not every Mason is a POS, and they got great books, and so that's what I'm interested in. So I'm down to book share, man, with some people, and I don't know, I might join the Rosy Cross as well. I might fuck it, I'm trying to join all of the secret societies that I can, and just to see. There's no reason why not. They'll probably put me on the dark hand path anyway, because I'm a fucking loser, but I love it, baby.
You just want to be naked in front of a bunch of people. I know you.
I'm trying to get, I want them to make some sculptures, put me on a trophy, please, baby, please. Let's talk about pyramids though, because you have a few good,
sure.
Articles on your website, and that are different. You have the physical actual pyramids. There's like a pyramid cathedral, and then but I want to start with the street layouts and the esoteric occult layouts of the streets, yo.
Okay, so Phoenix is laid out on a north, south, east, west grid, kind of like Lancaster, just boom, north, south, east, west. Everything's like a big checkerboard, right? The original city was laid out in a rectangle and oblong, and I'm de-occulting quite a bit of that right now. If you go to the older maps of the original Phoenix plot, but we'll take Phoenix as a whole here, okay? Only one road came in at a 45-degree angle, and that was Grand Avenue. It is Grand Avenue, and it stops at Van Buren Street. So just so your listeners know, if you're listening right now, pause it, go to thephoenixenigma.com, and I got an article called Chase Field Pyramid, Freemasons and the All-Seeing Eye. Go there and you can click on it and scroll down to get to the maps there. You can read all that if you want to, about the history of Washington and that kind of stuff, DC. Oh, shit. Hold on a second. My picture's gone. 1 second here. My photos aren't in here. Oh, so my photos are gone. I'm going to have to reload. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened here. I'm going to have to redo it. So I'll get those up. But the way we laid out Phoenix, or the founding fathers did, is going north-south, you have Central Avenue. Sorry, Central. And everything going west is First Avenue, Second Avenue, Third Avenue, Fourth Avenue. So they go up as you go further west. Going east from Central, you got First Street, Second Street, Third Street, Fourth Street. So the avenues go west and the streets go east. Then you got Washington, which is pretty much the east-west line. And what they did is they put the presidents, Washington, and then Jefferson to the south, then Adams to the north, and then is it Monroe to the south. And they kind of skipped, but they left one. They left one guy out, Adams. They left we had two Adams. They left the second Adams out because he was anti-Masonic.
Huh.
So the only people were Masons. They left out the anti-Masonic president who started the anti-Masonic party. So anyway, that's how it's laid out. Okay. So Grand Avenue comes in at a 45-degree angle from Wickenburg, and it stops at Van Buren Street. And that right there forms the right side of the pyramid, right? As you're looking at it. And then Van Buren forms the top of the flat. People don't know pyramids are flat at the top. They didn't go to a pointy point. They were flat at the top. And then they had another pyramid inside that sometimes that came up. So the point was on the inside, and they would do the ritual around that point.
The capstone.
The capstone, yeah. So the capstone didn't go flush. It was set in from the side, so you could perform your rituals up on top there. Okay, so you have the hold on, what am I head here?
Van B. It did start with a B. Van Buren, I think.
Van Buren, yeah, forms that, and then coming down the other side is why is that just out of my head here? I just said it. Hold on a second, it'll come to me. But so that forms the right side of the pyramid. Now, if you take a dotted line and come out where the 45-degree road starts, just keep going, dotting it all up to Washington, and then make a 90-degree left turn coming down. So you're basically going to dot in the capstone on top there. Okay. When you get to the top of that capstone, come halfway down between Van Buren and Washington Street, you get to 4th Street and Monroe. And that is the Montezuma's Grand Mason's Lodge. So what they did is they put the all-seeing eye in the center of an invisible capstone on a pyramid built into the downtown Phoenix area. And then they expanded that back in the early 90s when they did the downtown area there. And there's a bigger pyramid. It goes all the way up to Grand Avenue. If you take the dotted line and go past Washington up to the George Washington Carver Cultural Center and High School, and then come down and come halfway down, right, you get to another eye there as well. And I think I may have been wrong on my first assessment of that. I'm gonna have to rewrite this article because I think I had made a mistake, and we make mistakes as researchers. There's an all-seeing eye literally built into the Phoenix area, the downtown Phoenix area, and the Civic Center, the Convention Center is the all-seeing eye. The road bends up and it makes an eye of Ra right there in the center. So the first eye was the Grand Mason's Lodge, and the top of the pyramid stopped on Washington Street. The second eye is the Convention Center, and it stops on George Washington Carver. Now, George Washington was the first president, right? 33rd degree Scottish Rite Freemason, right? Laid down the cornerstone of the Capitol, right? George Washington Carver, who is he? Peanut butter, right?
Oh, peanut butter guy.
Peanut butter. But who else was he? Did you guys know that he was the first Black Grand Mason, Master Mason?
I didn't know he was Grand Mason. No.
He was Grand Mason.
Is he part of the Stuart line?
I don't know. But he was the first Black Grand Mason of a lodge. And it just so happens that this invisible capstone that got redone during the early 90s in Phoenix stops on George Washington Carver's cultural center, and the first one was on George Washington. Come on, man. So the Masons are still playing, and there's a ton of numerology laid out in the actual streets there.
That'd be like two pillars. The two pillars of George?
There are pillars. There's the pillars of Boaz and Jachin all over town. You'll find them in a lot of the buildings have them. A lot of the downtown buildings have them. You can go to the something I haven't written an article. I have a ton of info. I just never got around to doing it. There's the waterfalls over in Phoenix, just before you get into Scottsdale, on the canal there, and the SRP waterfall. And there's when you walk in there, there's these two big. The whole thing's a Masonic. The whole thing's Masonic, from the blocks that are unfinished to the blocks that are finished later on, and the work that was done to tame the river. It's full of Masonic symbolism from beginning to. I walk. When you're an occultist, you walk in somewhere, you're like, and everyone else is just like, oh, it's so pretty in here. It's art. And you're like, it's not art. There's just a story here. This is a signature. This is a power spot. This is a what do you call it? A sculpture. I also have a sneaky suspicion that there's something with the Scottsdale or the Phoenix public art commissions.
Yeah.
And the public art that gets placed out there as well. There's these two huge doors
Absolutely.
at Camelback and Scottsdale Road, and they're called the doors of perception, I think they're called. And there's three huge doors with smaller doors in them, and they're set up like on each other. And when you can go in there, they're right on the corner. It's an art exhibit. You go in the corner, and there's a pyramid, a triangle you stand on, and music comes out of the triangle. But all the insides of these doors are mirrored, so you see yourself mirrored all the way around. You're standing on a triangle, and as you look up, where the doors meet, there's another triangle, right? And there's three lights on each door on the outside. Oh, the whole thing, and it's sitting right in front of the Barry Goldwater Bank. And Barry Goldwater is a 33rd degree Scottish Rite Mason who, was one of the, founding bankers and families of Arizona, one of those powerful people in Arizona ever. And that's right there on the corner of Camelback and Scottsdale Road. It's everywhere, man.
There's got to be significance to that.
Oh, there's absolutely significance.
I've been on your site and looking at stuff. And since we're talking about pyramids, I thought it was very interesting because a lot of times we talk about unfolding a cube into a cross, but if you kind of unfold the pyramid, it forms the Templar cross.
Sure does.
And that's fucking fascinating, because up until recently, people didn't even realize that the pyramid wasn't 4-sided, it was actually 8-sided.
Yes.
And then when you unfold that, it turns into a Templar cross. Can you go into more detail about that, or is there anything else significant?
Well, the Templars cross, we saw that ritual carry out during the COVID with the Comfort and Mercy on both sides of the country, one in California and one in New York, right? We were flanked by the Templars. They flanked this town, and Trump got up there and did his big thing. And he made the Q sign right there, and it was Q plus, it was the plus the cross there. But that the red cross is the Templars cross. And the Comfort and the Mercy on both sides were there to offer help. It was a ritual. That was an actual ritual to sandwich the country between the Knights Templars again. I mean, I wear a necklace here. Let me see if we can see it here. It's a circle. Maybe away. A circle with a cross in it.
It's like the Atlantean symbol.
It's just a circle with a cross in it, with an equal cross. It's called the solar cross. Or the Greek cross. It's you might see it when you see the pictures of Jesus in the Orthodox churches, and his head is right there, and he has a circle around his head with the cross in it, right?
That's called there's a like a Celtic or Norse name for that too.
Absolutely.
Himmel.
I forget what it is, but yeah, it is one of the oldest symbols in the world, and the swastika is also a version of that. There's a great book. Can you guys hold?
Yeah.
Back in 15 seconds.
Grab all the books.
I just want to grab one. Hold on.
Yeah.
Yeah. For that solar cross it's a huge symbol. I mean, we definitely came across it when talking to Marco Vigato in our Atlantis month, and it signifies like kind of the 4 rivers leading from Atlantis, or from the North Pole also. I think is another place where they saw that symbol a lot too.
All
So
right.
it's an old one.
I got this book. I heard someone talking about it the other day, and I'm like, I need to own this. I haven't read the whole thing. I've just skipped around it, but it's a reproduction and from the original book that was written in. You guys are gonna like this. And I know you're gonna go on Amazon. You're gonna buy this. Written in. You'd be like, I need this book for my
Already
reference. When was this thing written here? 1902. Hold on. I think it was like 1902 or 18 something. What the hell was it? It was old. It's old. It's like from the turn of the century here. It's called The Swastika, the Earliest Known Symbol and Its Migrations.
Hmm.
And it's written by Thomas Wilson. And you go through and it talks about it shows. I mean, this was compiled, I think, in the mid to late 1800s. This book, there's footnotes on everything. He went through. There's reproductions of pottery. I mean, for instance, if you go to the museum, the Heard Museum over on Thomas and Central, and you go through the Cachinas and the pottery section, you're going to see an ancient Hohokam pottery with a swastika on it.
Yeah, I've seen something like that from Native Indigenous American symbolism, like it was, and then also ancient Vedic too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, there was a world culture, I believe, at one point. Robert Sepper talks quite a bit about this on his channel, and he is spot on here. But even the Microsoft symbol, which you got the four squares together. No, let me see. Sorry, I got my thing up here. The four squares, right there. The four squares in between those squares form a cross.
Oh yeah, that's true.
One of the oldest, I think, the only known symbol older than this cross right here is going to be a circle with just a dot in it. That may be the actual oldest, but the solar cross or versions of the swastika after that, are right up there. So like I said, it's an ancient symbol, and you see it all over the place. How do we get on that with the cross?
I mean, we were cruising.
Pyramid.
Oh, we were talking about pyramids
Masonic.
and pyramid.
Unfolding a pyramid.
Yes.
Unfolding a pyramid.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it makes sense that when you unfold a pyramid, you get a Templar's cross.
It is from the top too. Like I thought about it and I like folded it out in my head from the base. I don't know. That kind of reminds me, but you have to fold it out from the tip, and then you get that shape. Took me a couple times of drawing into my head. But yeah, what are some of the more significant actual structures of pyramids? Because I know there is a lot and you have like an article, I think, that describes 25 of them around Phoenix. That's just a lot of pyramid. Like, even if it's just infrastructure art, like it's a lot for a town.
So the first territorial governor and state governor, George Hunt, they called the Walrus was his nickname because the guy looked like a walrus.
Cuckoo, cuckoo.
All right. And the Walrus, Hunt, he was a 33rd degree Scottish Rite Mason who oversaw the coronation of all Masonic lodges in the state during his time here as governor. And he was another one that got to like prepare his own funeral, and he had built for himself a pyramid, and he's buried in it, and his wife's buried in it, and I think his siblings and his daughter, I think, are buried in it as well there.
Wow.
Or his wife's siblings, and they're buried at the Papago Park. You can go see it if you're in Phoenix today. Between sunup and sundown, you can drive over to the Hole in the Rock at Papago Park. It's right next to the Phoenix Zoo. In fact, they share the same entrance. Just go to the Phoenix Zoo and make a left about halfway down the driveway and drive back on this little winding road. You're going to drive back palm trees and some little ponds here and there and people jogging and fishing. Just kind of go towards the back of the park and look for the big white pyramid up on top of the hill there and park, and you can walk up there. And it's a place where a lot of people just kind of take a break when they're running or bicycling. And it's on this little mound of dirt. and it's overlooking the city of Phoenix. It overlooks the in fact, you can look down and see the giraffes and the elephants from right there too. It's kind of cool. And if you look up,
What a trip.
The mountain goats up on the mountain, and the hole in the rock is off to the north from there. So
now, what's the hole in the rock?
The hole in the rock is a ancient Hohokam archaeoastronomical device. It's when you're driving down Galvin Parkway there, you see this hole in a rock, and a lot of people get up there and they'll just kind of hang out there at sunrise and sunset. You hike up the back and you come through this hole in the rock, right? And it's kind of a cool place. And however, that's not the hole. The hole is if you go back, like you're going to go off the ledge and look straight up, and there's a hole at the top. It's vertical. It's so that the sun can shine through it. And what it was on the solstice, right? If you give an ancient culture a stick and a string and 200 years, they're going to figure out that the sun moves back and forth. They're going to figure out the year, right? They're going to figure out shadows and the length of the sun, or the length of the shadow, right? So that's super easy stuff. Equinox a little bit harder, right? But what they did is when the sun came through on a certain date, they carved into the conglomerate rock at the bottom there on the summer solstice and then on the winter solstice. So they track the sun back and forth, from kind of like an Indiana Jones, right? Where he puts the staff of Ra up there and the sun goes, and then the light beams through and it, right? Well, kind of like that minus the staff. The sun just comes through the hole, and the beam of light, at different times of the year shines onto the floor. And when it starts to move back, they marked it. Well, the ancient astronomers of the Hohokam, that was called the hole in the rock. And that was an ancient archaeoastronomical site. And they were probably watching Venus there as well. And the wandering stars or the planets, right? Sorry, flat earthers. And yeah,
that's Dan.
Careful. It's a new audience here. I don't know. I don't know
I'm with it.
the vibe here yet. But so but Hunt wanted to be buried. Like, that's a very powerful spot, right? For thousands of years, people sat there and worship the stars, and the holy and the wise men are there. But in his writings, Hunt said, I want to be buried on a hill overlooking the splendid city, or the splendid valley. Well, if you go into Masonic literature, you'll realize the splendid valley was the valley to the west of the Great Pyramid, and it was where one of the older pyramids sat, they believed, even in times of antiquity. Likewise, I found it the other day, and I hope I got it, because I'm behind on my research. But what's his name? The Lost Dutchman, Wallace. Waltz, Jacob Waltz. He also said he wanted something about the Splendid Valley, and he was a Mason too, no doubt. So we have a really old, a lot of Masonic stuff. Anyway, he's buried in this pyramid there. And the pyramid, I ran the data out on it. The numbers are significant with Masonry, as well as the plot of land that it's on. If you look at it with Google and look down, you'll see like there's 3 steps, 1, 2, 3. Well, there's 3 levels of Masonry. When you're standing on it, there's actually 3 there's 3 levels to it. You got the square that the pyramid is built on. Then there's the second level and the third. So there's 3 levels vertical. There's 3 levels horizontally, right? But if you measure across this platform that the pyramid is built on, it measures like 32 feet across, which is exactly 32 feet across is what the top of the pyramid of Cheops is, or the Great Pyramid, 32 feet across on the flat top. So the first governor of Arizona had himself buried in a pyramid that it's not a pyramid, it's a capstone. He recreated the capstone on top of the pyramid that the Romans stole, right? Now, if you go back and you measure the angle of that, it's at 47 degrees. 47 degrees is the degrees on the compass, on the Masonic compass, the compass and square, 47 and 90.
Jeez.
Right?
So this guy
4790.
is and what was his significance to Phoenix again? I'm sorry.
He was the first. That's right. He was the first territorial governor.
Oh wow.
He and as well as state governor, and he was like it was like the longest governor for how many damn tours he had. He had a whole bunch of them, you know. But do you guys know why the compass and the square are 90 and 47?
I don't know why. Someone has told me and I've heard, but I cannot recall.
So it's the other is 137. When you look at a plant and as when you look like if you look at a branch coming off like a small plant, you can bend the branch at you and look straight down it, or a flower petal that comes out, they'll come out at 137 degrees, one flower, 137 degrees, another flower, 137. So by the time they keep coming out, those petals will maximize their exposure to the sun, and the leaves come out at the same 137 degrees.
Interesting. I did not know that. I wonder what that cosmic significance is. It plays into what, like,
it gets into Fibonacci sequence and all that.
Yeah, but that I guess those numbers don't like recall in my head when I think about the Fibonacci sequence, but that's fascinating. I mean, it makes sense because, you know, when you think about a squaring the circle, you're talking about, you know, rotating it, drawing an angle, and that perfect, they describe right there 137, the perfect rotation, you know, and it's all it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Man, what's another pyramid? I know there's more. Let's keep going on the pyramids. It's fascinating.
Well, there's another pyramid over at Tovery Castle. I haven't gotten to that because it's blocked off. There's the let me get to here. Let me get to my pyramids article here.
You have to hop the fences, my man.
I know. I've actually weighed the consequences and wonder if I'd have the money to bail myself out. I'm going to do that.
We got you. We'll always, you know, if it ever happens, have somebody reach out to us. We'll hit up our everybody. We'll be like, hey, everybody, Cory was going out for the squad. He was trying to get that juice on the streets. Let's bail his ass out, and we'll get you out overnight, guarantee. Okay, wait. That's a little bit hard of a guarantee.
How big is your audience, by the way?
Huge.
This is a new audience. This is a new audience. Wait, is it huge like Donald Trump? Huge.
It's huge, biggest audience. No, we've been getting
we've been doing pretty well lately.
It's been going great. Yeah, pretty stoked.
I got to get my audience back. I had 62,000 followers on YouTube before they killed my channel.
Well, we're not there.
Yeah.
I had 62,000.
YouTube is just
when I went on with
something else, man.
I was on with Sean Atwood last year on the Isaac Cappy stuff, and it was the biggest show he ever did. He had 4,000 people in the waiting room waiting, and we had 12,000 people watching live.
Wow,
huge.
So I don't want to digress too much away from the pyramids, but we
let's go on. So
I also wanted to ask about Cappy because you know, I know it's not the topic of the show, but I want to know more because I honestly don't know much about it at all. Like zero, honestly.
Oh, you should go listen to the Higher Side Chats episode then if you don't know anything about it.
Really? Yes.
Yeah. I was on with him.
It's like a whole 2-hour show just on that, dude.
I've talked about Isaac Cappy on air for the last 2 years. I led the research. I'm the one that did the investigation on that. My fiance is the last person to spend time with Isaac before he died. We met during the investigation. We fell in love, you know, and decided we needed to be together. But you know, we have a lot of inside info on that. But he died up in, you know, he exposed. He came out on July 22nd at 1:33 in the afternoon at the San Diego Comic-Con, and he called out who was it? He called out Seth Green, right? Claire and Spielberg for being pedos. He called out Tom Hanks later, right? And he went on Lift the Veil with Nathan Stoltman after that. He was on with Alex Jones. He went on Alex Jones. Alex Jones ripped him apart. He was really pissed off at Alex Jones. But that's why he believed that Alex Jones was working for the Mossad. He got into, people were following him. He had himself 5150 because he was afraid they were going to kill him one night. Everyone thinks that he went crazy, and that his friends called. No, he called himself. He had nowhere to go to where he'd be safe, so he 5150'd himself. So for 72 hours, he took himself off the streets so he could make arrangements. He went to Australia, came back. He wrote the infamous song, Brackets and Jackets. Have you heard the Brackets and Jackets song?
No.
Epstein edition. Oh, dude, you gotta go.
God.
After the show, go listen to Brackets and Jackets, Epstein edition. Find it and listen to it. That whole entire he was rapping. He was a musician. Okay, he was a singer. He was an actor. He played in Thor. He was in Beer Fest. He was in Terminator 3. He was a B actor in Hollywood. That's where he met these Hollywood folks. And basically he said that one night when he was over at Seth and Claire's, they said, "Hey, we got to talk about chicken." He said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, we got to talk about chicken. We want to let you in on something." And they took him upstairs and they showed him a room that had like a crib and like baby stuff in it, and they weren't expecting, and they didn't have any kids. They didn't have any nieces or nephews. And then he said that they went kind of down off the living room, and Seth opened up this like literally a bookshelf, and it opened it up and there's like the secret room, and he went in there and there were like these cots and chains and shit. And he said, "This is where we keep the kids." And he just looked at him, I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he basically asked him, "Do you want in on this?" And he stopped hanging out with them for a while, and then he thought about it, and then he had to come out. He said, "I had to come out and do it." He said, "You got to come clean, guys. I love you. You're on a wrong path. You're just something that's completely just wrong and disgusting. I'm calling you out for it." He thought the FBI was going to jump on it. He thought the cops were going to jump on it. They didn't. It was full cover mode. Paris Jackson, accused him at that point, like a few weeks later, a month later, of choking her at a party. They were playing. They were not even like roughhousing, but he just kind of put his hands on her throat, jokingly, and like went like that, like you do to your friend, and she made it sound like that he killed her or was trying to kill her and freaked out, and they basically blacklisted him. He went on more and more shows. His periscopes. He went further on the periscopes and called out more people for pedophilia. He was putting together an underground social media phenomenon called Unseal Epstein. He wanted the Epstein records unsealed. And he was going downhill when he got back from Australia. He went downhill bad. And Alicia, my fiance, went to see him on the Wednesday before he died. And later on that Saturday, she went to go see him. And because Friday is that infamous last video he did. It was like almost an hour long, where he talked about, like, I did something wrong. I betrayed Trump, on and on and on. This, like, it was just a horrible video to watch. But I think everyone thinks there was somebody in that room making him make that video at that time. And I believe that there was. I believe he was being forced to make that video at that time. But she went to see him the next day, and he kept saying, "I'm not suicidal. I'm not suicidal." Everyone thinks, I'm suicidal. I'm not suicidal, but they're going to kill me. They're going to kill me. And she said, "Well, you can come to my place. Come on, let's go. Let's get out of here. No one knows where I live. You can just hang out. We can paint. You can, just chill. We'll go to the beach." And he's like, "No, I don't want to tonight. Maybe tomorrow." She's okay. I'll call you in the morning. I'll drive back down. She lived over in Yorba Linda, and he was in Apple Valley at the time. And anyway, she went home. She called him in the morning. He didn't answer. Around noon, she called him again. Anyway, he called her back about 3 and said, "No, I can't come. I'm going to go see my mom." She's like, "Oh, okay," for Mother's Day. And he took off at 7:45 from Apple Valley, and he made 3 stops along the way. And his tire blew out in Belmont, Arizona. I think it was sabotaged. And his last time his phone was accessed, anyone saw him on the Telegram chat. He had hundreds of people in the family in Burguesa. The chat room was at 1:32 or 1:37 in the morning. And then at 7:22 in the morning on May 13th, he threw himself off a bridge, according to TMZ. If you're on the internet right there, you have access open up the Isaac Cappy mind map. There's 2 years worth of information, of PDFs, of interviews, of videos, of audio, of 911 calls, all of it, stories, interviews I did with 4 of the 6 witnesses on the scene, all of it, tracking it down. And everyone can go there and they can check it out and see. But what got me interested at well, as you know, I'm a professional certified guide. So I used to drive from Phoenix to the Grand Canyon. Everyone said, Cory, how did you get involved in this? I'm like, well, it was an accident. Like it was like not something that I planned to do. I was going to the Grand Canyon on a tour. I had that morning, I had a 9 o'clock pickup in Flagstaff, but they contract with us in Phoenix. So I drove to Flagstaff from Phoenix. I picked up right there on I-40 at a hotel at 9 o'clock. So by 9:26, I was cruising through Belmont. There was nothing. Like, it was a normal day. There was no accident. There were no emergency vehicles. Nothing was blocked off, right? So I go to Williams, up to the Grand Canyon, out the Navajo Indian Reservation, and back down the backside of Flagstaff and down to Phoenix. No big deal. That was May 13th, 2019. It's a normal day for me. The next day, my phone blows up, just absolutely blows up. And it's like, Cory, Isaac Cappy died. Isaac Cappy died in your own backyard. You got to go investigate it. Because at the time, I was researching the Vegas shooting, right? I was very involved with the Vegas shooting, de-occulting it from the ritualistic standpoint of it. And I was into de-occulting some other things as well. I had done the Ortolan bird, de-occulting of the Golden Globes, 2019 as well. That's when my channel went from like 2,500 subscribers to like 32,000 subscribers in less than 5 days, right? So it really took off. And then they had found this other video I did. You may have seen it, where I was in the Superstition Mountains. There's like a 25-minute video of me. The Paranormal Files hired me for the day to take them out to the superstitions and tell them stories about the Southwest and the stuff. So those things kind of all, it was a trifecta at the same time. And I get, my phone blows up and people are saying, Cory, you got to, Isaac. I'm like, who the hell's Isaac Cappy? Like, it's that guy with the hair, in California going on about the pedos. And at that time, I wasn't really super heavy into the pedo thing, And so I'm like, all right, I'll look into it. And I made a phone call, and someone else contacted me and said, hey, you got to talk to this girl here. She works at the station. And basically I started investigating it. And the next day, on the 15th, I think I released a video. On the 14th, the 15th, I released a video, I believe it was. And it said, I basically said, hey, there's something weird here, guys. The TMC article says that it's that the place was opened up by 10:30, but I was there at 9:26, and there was like nothing going on. I don't know what's going on here, but reading the TMZ article to this, I can tell you there's something really, really off. So after I made that video and tagged Isaac Cappy in it, I was approached by the Famalam. That was Isaac's friends, Isaac was compiling information from the field and getting it to DC via his White House contact. And I verified, I met his White House contact and spoke with him. He was moving information on pedophilia in Hollywood to the White House, as well as some DC people, because Hollywood is the entertainment wing of the CIA, right? Yeah. Everyone knows that. All the intelligence agencies, for that matter. So that's how I got involved in it. And I was just on tour that day and happened to be going through there, and I made a video just adding my little bit, like, guys, there was nothing weird, but I started making phone calls. I went and I got the official reports. I tracked down the witnesses. I spoke to them. I got the 911 calls. I just started putting together. I worked with Isaac's mother and father. I worked with a few of Isaac's close friends in the Famalam and the people he was moving information with. And then a lot of it, there's a very dark side of the internet, extremely dark side, and it gives me anxieties to talk about it anymore. But there are people, second and third tier operators and disinformation agents and chaos agents that will gang stalk you and destroy your channel, destroy your life, call your boss, just completely come after you and try to destroy when you're onto something that they don't want you on. And I believe it's orchestrated. I believe it is from the top down. Some of them are just hoodlums out there, but a lot of them are conscripted by intelligence agencies. And they might even not know that they're working for intelligence agencies. They're just pumping disinformation and chaos into the truther community. And it's full of it. Truther community is full of garbage, just absolute garbage, rabbit holes. They get people to go down and waste time and waste resources, and to keep you from the real child trafficking. I mean, I know where the real child trafficking is happening, right? It's not, I don't mention other names here, but there's certain YouTubers that go on about underground dumbs where 500 or 5,000 kids were rescued yesterday when this underground satanic pedophile adrenochrome, blah, blah, blah. And all the buzzwords are in there. And, Trump's secret military entourage of Navy SEALs and Rangers busted through and saved 5,000 kids who were whisked away in underground tunnel systems, and on and on and on and on and on. It's all bullshit. It's all just disinformation to make the truther community look like a bunch of damn retards and conspiracy nut jobs, where the real human trafficking is going on in Tucson right now. It's going on in your organized religions right now. It's going on above ground in your neighborhoods right now. That's where it's truly happening. It's going on in your child protective services and your foster care programs. It's not some dark satanic, underground sexy murder mystery story. It's going on institutionally.
Anywhere where there's a lot of high tourist rate going on. Like I lived in Hawaii for a long time, and there's human trafficking going on the islands, and you wouldn't really think that would be a place where there would be a lot of human trafficking, because it's like, okay, well, what are you're just going to load these people on a boat like they're with their families and stuff. But I mean, it happens. You got the Yakuza cartel, and then all the other organizations.
Let's go the other way. Right now, you have 1,000 kids coming in a day from Mexico into the United States unaccompanied. They go into a federal holding facility south of Tucson. They're put on buses without parents or adults, shipped off to Phoenix to the hotels, taxpayer dollars, for 3 days. They're processed and they're flown all over the country. No one knows where they go.
Orphan trains.
Oh yeah. Okay, so let's tie back into the good stuff here. That was amazing. Thank you for giving us a breakdown on that. I think it's really important. It's also really funny that Elon Musk, fucking shit Ted Tusky, fucking Ceylon greeny ass son of a bitch. Anyways, after he bought Twitter, what he did go do, he made like this big post.
He hasn't actually bought Twitter yet, by the way.
Anyways, after that whole scandal, right? He goes on Twitter and he's like, "What about Epstein? Like, that just happened and got squashed after COVID started. Why don't we bring that back up?" And I was like, "Dude, really? Like this guy just?"
Well, I de-occulted Epstein too.
Bring it on. Do you have any good?
I did a full de-occulting on Epstein. I don't. I got some Vegas stuff though. Just I found out yesterday. Guess who Trump just endorsed for the governor of Nevada? Joseph Lombardo. Joseph Lombardo was the sheriff during the Vegas shooting. See, Vegas is one of those weird jurisdictions. Okay, you know what the sheriff does, right? The sheriff is the highest law enforcement officer in the jurisdiction wherein he resides, right? So you have a city with a police department. Your county is the sheriff, right? Your Department of Public Safety is your highway patrol, right? Under the purview of the state. And then your National Guard is under the governorship, right? That's your executive enforcement branches of every state. Whenever a city forms in a county, they form their own police department, and then the sheriff works the periphery of these cities. The police handle everything in the city, except for a few jurisdictions across the country. Vegas is one of those where the county and the city share the same law enforcement agency. And Joseph Lombardo was an undersheriff during the Bundy Ranch standoff. He's a Republican, but he was sympathetic to the feds. See, the feds can't just come in willy-nilly in your area and say, we want to block that off. Like the movies, like we're with the feds. The sheriff can come in and say, fuck you. We're detaining you and we're shipping you out. You are not going to be in the county. The feds have the authority. I'm sorry. The sheriff has the authority to kick the feds out of their jurisdiction, out of their county when push comes to shove, which means that every time one of these false flag operations goes on, or a cover up goes on, and the head of counter intel comes in, like Aaron Rouse. Aaron Rouse was the head of the FBI counter intel. He was the guy that came in on day 2 of the Vegas, after the Vegas shooting, and was the guy. There was a suit back there standing to Lombardo's left, like just beaming freaking laser beams through his eyes to make sure he didn't go off script. Anyway, Joseph Lombardo played ball with the feds, and they covered up that shooting. And now he's being rewarded. He's being rewarded with an endorsement by Donald J. Trump. Donald J. Trump covered up what happened in Vegas. I know for a fact Donald Trump knows what happened in Vegas because I have the recordings that we got to General Flynn. People, I was vetted by one of General Flynn's guys when I was discussing matters with Lynn Wood and moving recordings, audio recordings of the aftermath up there. That's what I've been working on the last couple of years here. So yeah, I know there's a lot of Trump humpers out there, people who love Trump and think Trump's the savior. He's going to save us from the evil Biden. Again, get out of the left-right paradigm. I'm going to use this bully pulpit here. Get out of the left-right paradigm. There's not, guys, they're both controlled opposition. There's tyranny and there's freedom. And we're being set up for a tube shot in this country right now. I know for a fact Trump knows what happened in Vegas, and he should have came out and told America what happened, but he didn't, and he's still sitting on it. And that personally just pisses me off. But so that happened. There's some news that just broke yesterday in my world.
Nice. What about paranormal experiences in Phoenix? They got the thing called like the Phoenix Lights, which I never dug too deep into, but have you had any paranormal experiences or seen?
I saw the Phoenix Lights.
Oh, yeah.
I was there for it, man.
Shit, I seen it. I was there. Hell yeah. Well, yeah.
My buddy said, dude, go outside and look. Go outside and look. Well, I went outside and I climbed on my roof and I looked, and I saw the delta-shaped lights going they're just to the south of my house, because I lived in like central North Phoenix, and they were just going over Squaw Peak, like just boom, right over it. And that's what I saw. And I'm like, oh shit. And I went inside and I got the cell phone, right? Because we didn't have cell phones. We had the portable phones, right? And I called my friend. He said, I'm on the house. I just went over there. And he came over and I sat on there. And about 2 hours later, I think it was, Luke Air Force Base off to the west starts dropping these lights, the flares. I'm like, when are they dropping flares over there? Because everyone, if you live around a military base, you know what flares look like, when they're doing training. So the next day, there's like on TV, oh, there was a UFO flap last night. People thought they saw a UFO, but it was just Luke Air Force Base, dropping flares for practice. And about 63,000 people called the news and said, you guys are full of it. It went right over Phoenix. So when they found out what happened, it actually came out of the Nevada area, across the Grand Canyon, through St. George, Utah, across the Grand Canyon, over Williams, south over the Bradshaw Mountains, kind of at this angle, and then boom, went straight south into over Phoenix into Mexico. And so it was more than just Phoenix that saw them. Like people saw it. Chino Valley saw it. People saw them all the way down, and they said, oh, there were ultralights with light. Ultralights can't make that mileage. You can't fly an ultralight from St. George, Utah to Phoenix, in like an hour. So yeah, I saw it. And it was something unexplainable.
Did anybody like claim to have any like experiences during that, or like besides just viewing it? Like, like anybody have like a
there's the woo-woo world,
Mm-hmm.
there's the I don't get too much into the woo-woo world. I'm a professional guide, and I've done over 1,600 tours in Sedona, and I can tell you there's some really retarded shit that goes on up there. I just don't get into the woo-woo world. I'm an occultist. Like, I understand that the occult and magic is physics. I get it. I get that there's a spiritual side to people and you can tap into that. And there's a machine. You know, your brain is a 3 to 4 dimensional interface computer. You know, from a non-tangible world to the tangible world, and there's a gift of life.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all that. I get it, but I don't get into the woo-woo too much. I just have no patience for it. It's all subjective. It's all feeling. My girl does, Alicia, you know, she's, but there's people who feel, there's people who don't feel, there's people who think. I'm a thinker. I'm on that side of it. So I guess I'm just not equipped with the hardware for that.
You got to have balance, man. That's the hermetics of goodness, of the polarity.
Exactly. There's got to be a balance, and that's why her and I we complement. I'll tell you what. There's a cool book I saw, and I didn't get. I should have got it. It talked about the trajectory of the angle of the Phoenix Lights when they came in relation to the stars on that night, and the astronomy, not the astrology, but the astronomy. And it was pretty hardcore. The guy did his work. I think it was an astrologer, astronomist, and put that book together. And there's something there. He's onto something. He was onto something. I know that Governor Simon came out and made a joke about it.
Yeah, dressed as an alien.
Marched some alien on stage, and everyone got pissed off. He actually apologized for it. But what no one talks about is 2 days later, it was the next night or the second to next night afterwards, there was another sighting of a delta-shaped lights up in the Pinnacle Peak area. That was very significant as well. It doesn't get talked about. It's like the second the second crash at Roswell doesn't get talked about. You know.
Oh yeah, I mean, can we talk about that? That sounds fucking amazing. Also, Dan, what were you gonna say, buddy?
What you got, Dan?
Oh, go ahead, because I was gonna kind of start rapping.
Rapping? We're just getting started.
Oh well, I figured it was only for 2 hours. We only got 5 minutes left, so.
Well, you can just have me on again sometime.
Yeah, because I was gonna say I wanted to get into the Ojo story and the Grand Canyon and Montezuma and Monatomic Gold and then Route 66.
Yeah.
But we'll skip all that. And I know this is kind of near and dear to Roman's heart, so you have a thing on there about sacred physics and ancient technology of the Royal Crown.
Oh yeah.
And Roman, why don't you tell them like kind of what you've been doing and whatnot?
Got some work I'm working on. Real big words there. But I got some research I'm working on compiling some evidence on a thought piece that I have, and it involves Antiquitech, that from, you know, the turn of the 4th century, well, basically from the time of Egypt, all of human existence, right? That our ancestors were tapped into the collective cloud of consciousness, and they understood consciousness on the level of electrical frequencies and resonance. And that's why I think, you know, all this architecture of our past has resonance built into it, and everything is astutely attuned to the perfect vibrational frequencies that be. And looking into the Renaissance period, when they started really working with heavy alchemy, and we have a lot of alchemical text, that they were using the jewelry of the gold and using these alchemical processes to make the royal crowns and to make the scepters and to make the cruciger globus, the globus cruciger, as this holy trifecta of magical workings. And you needed all three of them to kind of accelerate your consciousness and tap it into, I call it antiquated transhumanism, because it's, it's the same thing of electrically connecting your consciousness to the cloud or the computer, but it's happening in antiquated days. And I think there was obviously a big shift when the quantum computing world came to be, and that's kind of the new form of alchemy, in my opinion. After around the 16th through the 18th century, in the indoctrination period of completely taking alchemy out of the equation and putting in all of these new forms of what we see as modern science and modern religion. but that the crowns and the scepters and these very specific tools and jewelry were used to extend the consciousness, and that's why they were used with like conductive materials and like dipped in a mercurial solution, you know, and done with seances, and having there's a lot of symbolism that goes through it. And the thing is they were all using them, every single culture across the globe at one point, you know, like whether you were a Hawaiian, a Mexican, an African, you know, Russian, Swedish, they all had a set of the cruciger globus, the scepter, and the crown. So those things, I'm like, there was something going on with that, and like the world powers that be, you know?
Ethereal energy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, I really do believe that we had a global a global world, a global community based on pyramids, and another set of understanding of physics at one point, and we no longer have that. It's gone. I mean, it's obvious. We have pyramids in Egypt. You have ziggurats in the Middle East. You have the platform mounds and the pyramids down in Mesoamerica, and then you got the platform mounds here in North America, right? There were 50 some odd, 52, 53 platform mounds in Phoenix, but you don't see any more till you get to Cahokia. Cahokia is a whole other thing. Like, my goodness, Cahokia up there. Massive platform mounds, and all the platform mounds that go all the way up to New England. So we had pyramid culture and the understanding of that. I'm not too familiar with everything that you just said, but I'm absolutely fascinated in that. You can talk off air about that, or give me a little rabbit trail to go down. I'd love to dive into that. You know, I know that the scepter is still used by the Congress. You know, they got the mace, right? I did a deocculting on that mace, but certain stones. There was a book called I forget the name of it now. It was about alchemy, and it was about monatomic gold, and it was about Moses in the Bible, and going back to the Torah, and it talked about how Moses was probably up there making a version of monoatomic gold up on the mountain, and came back down, and they were eating that. It might have been the mana, and it was bridging the synapses in the brain, allowing them to do things. There's stories that the Native Americans have. There was some monatomic gold that was supposed to be down somewhere in south of Phoenix before you get to Mexico, in that desert down by Ajo or something. There was a pile of it, you know, kind of like, I envision like Dune, you know, you got this like these like the red spice out there, you know, but they had this just sitting out there, this monoatomic gold that naturally went. I did a whole study on monoatomic gold. If you want to get to it now, or we can save it for the next show.
No, let's get into it, man. I have a buddy who fucking started this company called Ormus, and he was like, this is monatomic gold extracted from the ocean. And I was like, all right, let me get a bottle. And that shit got me feeling some type of way. He's like, you will have a transcendental experience. And I haven't looked much into it since I tried that one little bottle, but I would please, like, let's definitely do that. It sounds amazing.
Okay. So, we have a mountain here, range I talked about north, where Jack Swilling came out of, called the Bradshaws, you know, after the Bradshaw family. Phoenix is on the south side of the Bradshaws, Wickenburg on the west, and Prescott on the north. It's right in the center of the state. It has the highest concentration of gold in North America, but it's all in little teeny tiny micro specks. It's all over. There's, I think, 63 ghost towns up in that mountain range.
Holy shit.
Yeah, every time they would like hit gold, it would like burn out within like they'd just have a town, and like a month later it'd burn out. So there's little tiny bits of it everywhere. That being said, that's not the treasure in that mountain. There's a place called Castle Hot Springs on the south side of that mountain. You might have heard of it. You can run up north of Lake Pleasant on the 74, which is the Carefree Highway, and you can go up there. And Castle Hot Springs is tucked away in there. Castle Hot Springs is where the first territorial governor's house was when we were a territory, tucked in those mountains, way up in there. I don't know why they'd put it up in there, but it sure as hell was. And there was like this little mansion thing up there. It was the courthouse, and they used to hang people on the on the front porch there. And it was like it was the whole thing. That was the territorial capital of Arizona for a while. But why? There are hot springs there. Okay. The Apaches would go there, and there were stories and the Yavapai would go there and they would heal in these springs. Okay. It comes out like 120 something degrees or something like that. It comes out hot. So there's these 3 pools now. It comes down to 1 to 2 to 3. When you go through the history, and I have an article about it on my website here, when you check out this Castle Hot Springs, you see that it was opened up. People were coming out here in the Old West, like to bathe in the hot springs to get cured of stuff. It was curing people of all kinds of things. And, you know, the Apaches, even when they were warring with other tribes, like the elderly were permitted to go there. And if you were wounded, you could go there and heal in these springs and come out. JFK soaked there. The Carnegies went there, right? There's a number of different extremely wealthy people throughout the years. It was a winter retreat for the wealthy, but very influential, extremely rich. I think the Rockefellers used to hang out there, right? What could be the healing properties? Well, the water that comes out of these springs comes from 7,200 and some odd feet deep. I believe it's 7,200, 7,400. It's the deepest known artesian spring hot water we have, like, in the country. I believe it's the country.
Wow.
It's what the Hopi refer to as deep rock water. So after the radiation is supposed to fall, only deep rock water you can drink. That being said, I have a theory that micro gold in that mountain range in the Bradshaws filtered through, and with the heat and the compression down there at 7,000 feet, the water grabs and pushes it back up, and you have a type of a monoatomic healing springs coming out of there, coming out of that deal. I tracked down a gentleman who wrote a book about Leon. Now, Ponce de Leon was he had heard, you know, he was for the fountain of youth, right, down there in Florida. Well, where did he learn about that? He learned about that from the Muslim Moors that he used to sail with, and then he told the queen about it, and the queen said, oh, go find it, and she financed this deal to go find the fountain, you know, because all rich people wanted to be, same thing that millionaires and billionaires do now. They fund anti-aging life extension technologies. Well, the Queen of Spain did the same thing with Ponce de Leon, and he came over here and he talked to the natives, and he found a spring. He found a spring in Florida that the nutritious salts would come off of the mainland, and they would carry the gold with them, and they would go down into the bedrock, and the nutritious salts from the ocean would lap over there, and they would go underground like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of feet to where the artesian, or where they would get hot, and they would come back up with a spring into this one area. And in that area right there, the Native Americans believed that those springs were healing due to for whatever reason, and they found out later that there was gold. He had done a bunch of research and assays and water samples done, and there was monoatomic gold in that. So I think there's something to that. I really think there's something to that.
Yeah. Go ahead, Roman.
It's just I think monatomic gold is a fascinating concept, because it's like, it's so small and it's so easily absorbed into your system that, like, you're just inhaling all of this gold, and you don't even know, but you know, you're being like electrically charged from the earth. And yeah, if you guys can get your hands on it, you know, a product or whatever, deep ocean mind or what have you, definitely do it, because my pineal gland was straight piezo charged, man, like a waffle iron. It's been plugged in for a couple hours, and your hot griddle is just ready to get smushed with the, I don't know, the sweet doughy goodness.
But you have to wonder, how come gold is the default currency? How come, you know, the ancients, I don't know whether you're in Egypt or Mesoamerica or ancient Rome, gold was worshipped. It was the blood, the sweat, and the tears of the gods. You can't eat it, you can't smoke it, you can't drink it, you can't fuck it. What do you do with it? It's just, what do you do with it? You know what I mean? Aside from when computers came out, you know, we can start making wires out of it and connections and everything, and using it as a conductor. What did you do with it back in the old day? What was the value of it? Zachariah Sitchin had his theories, but I tend to believe that putting it into the body or changing it alchemically into something that, it changes the body and makes you smarter and younger and faster. Kind of like Dune, spice, man. Spice must flow.
I'm gonna have to watch that new one. I haven't gotten around to watching the new Dune yet.
Yeah, me either. I want to see it.
I just watched it like about a week or two ago, and
how was it?
It was pretty good, man.
Nice. Nice.
I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah, but there was a whole thing. What was his name? Was it Robert something? Was it Monroe's down here in Phoenix, who was making the first monoatomic gold? Are you familiar? Do you know the story?
No.
You don't know the story, Roman?
Shit, no. Like I said, my buddy
is...
has that brand, and that was like my extent on the Monatomic.
So I want to say his name. God, I want to say Robert. It's probably not. It's been years since I've talked to a farm. He had a family farm. He was. I just don't mean like he was a farmer like me, where I have some stuff in the backyard, some squash. Dude had like miles of farming, down south of Phoenix here on the way to California, and he was doing cotton, because we do a lot of cotton here in Arizona. Pima cotton, actually, and that gets in the old stuff too, but another story. But anyway, his soil was being depleted, and he was he went to Ajo and picked up different chemicals. He was spraying his fields and experimenting, trying to change the chemistry of his soil to where certain nutrients weren't binding and they would become readily available to his plants, right? That's what he was doing. And he got the soil samples, and he took them in for assaying, and he did I think the Russians did it the best. He had the Russians, Americans wouldn't do it for him. But what do they do with a spectrometer, where they burn it off and the different colors come out and they read the colors for the what I'm talking about?
I think it's spectrometer. Yeah.
Spectrometer. Anyway, he starts monkeying around, and I know I'm butchering the story here and talked about this for years now, but they do this one, he finds monoatomic gold, and like, what is this? He's like, I don't know, you tell me. And he starts playing with it, and he did this deal to where they put it in a spectrometer, and they would hit it with a certain frequency or a certain level after it burns, and it would disappear, and then it would reappear. It actually became interdimensional. It disappeared. It was gone. And then they kept cranking up, and then it came back. He starts producing monoatomic gold in his factory, small factory down south of Phoenix. And you know what? The feds came in, shut him down, confiscated everything, and said, you will not do this again under penalty, jail, imprisonment, financial ruin, yada, yada, yada. Shut him down completely. He was the first guy making all that stuff. That's where it started. That's where the monoatomic gold kind of came on scene, was down here in south of Phoenix.
You mentioned Pima cotton. Yes. I was trying to think of where I heard that before, and I just started reading a book called the Oralinda, and in the beginning of it, they talk about how the people who continued on this story, it's Frisian mythology, and they were using Pima cotton as like a type of paper to write all this down on. And they're trying to figure out where this Pima cotton came from.
I can tell you.
Yes, please do.
So when the settlers got here to the Phoenix Valley, they found, so the 5 C's, the 5 economic C's of Arizona are cotton, copper, cattle, citrus, and climate. Those are the 5 C's that made Arizona from the late 1800s till Motorola came in, and those were the originals. And cotton had been grown here. We tend to think of Native Americans. If you watch the Old West, you think of Native Americans, you're coming across the West, and there's just a bunch of spear chucking, hide wearing, wagon burning savages out there, right? Killing everyone, chopping everyone, or raping everyone. Dude, there were trade networks, there were platform mounds, there were pyramids, there were astronomical sites all over the country. There were networks of birds and macaws and parrot feathers coming up from Mesoamerica, and little copper bells from further south in Guatemala coming all the way up here, and shit coming in from the Pacific Ocean, shells and coral and whatnot, and trading. They found flint from Michigan here in Phoenix area. So huge networks. The Native Americans were growing a cotton out here in the valleys. You have to have irrigation to have cotton. It takes a lot of water, right? And that's what they were growing. Their primary crop in Phoenix was corn, but it was also cotton, right? And they would get it together, and they would then relay trade it north. So the natives would put it on their backs and carry it 40, 50 miles north to like Black Canyon City, to the Agua Fria culture, and they would trade for deer hides or bear skins or obsidian from the obsidian fields. And then they would come back south again, and they would grab their cotton. And then everyone only went like 50. You didn't have to go from Phoenix to Idaho. You just had to go your 50 miles, and the next guy would do his 50 miles, and that's how stuff got traded, called relay trading. So cotton was the primary export here. People wore clothing, cotton clothing in the American Southwest. They wore cloth. They were weaving cloth. Now they had yucca fiber stuff as well, and deer hides to some extent. But down here in the deserts, they wore cotton clothing. Up north, when they wore clothing, up north, they wore a lot of deer skins and bear hides. Okay. That being said, in 1905, the botanists come in here and they find this cotton growing. And they're like, oh, look at that. We can grow here, right? Because 1902 was the Reclamation Act got passed, right? And the first project was the Tennessee Valley Authority in 1903. And the second project was building the dams along the Salt River. So the Roosevelt Dam started, and then the next dam down formed after that. That was Apache Lake. And then the next one was Canyon Lake, and then Saguaro Lake. Those are the four lakes. They spell SCAR, S-C-A-R, all the way up. And that tamed the Salt River, because back in the day, the Salt River used to flood out, and if Phoenix would flood like miles either way of the Salt River, the same way Egypt did, the Nile did, right? It would lay down new nutrients, then it would recede again, and they would go in there and plant again. That's how it worked. That's a whole different topic about the similarities between Phoenix and Phoenix and Egypt, which explains why DC and Phoenix, the head of Egypt now is Phoenix, or DC and Phoenix again. So all these tie-ins from the ancient Masonic world to today, and even going back, 2,000 years ago to the Hohokam, these same ties are here in the Phoenix area. That being said, they find this cotton growing, and they say, hey, let's mix this with Egyptian, because it's very drought tolerant here in Phoenix. And so they mix it, and they make a hybrid, and they grew it out on a test farm in a place called Sacaton, which is about 40 miles to the east of Phoenix. And they had the Pimas grow it out. They hired Pimas to grow it out, because Pimas were really good at growing cotton. And when they found it, they called it ELS, or extra long staple. It was a very long. So that cotton we grow in Phoenix now is the second finest cotton on earth after Egyptian cotton, because it's a hybrid, but it's more drought resistant. So they're losing some length on it, but they're getting more drought resistance. And in honor of the Pima who grew it out, they called it Pima cotton.
And the Pima are an indigenous, indigenous culture from Arizona.
Pima are the descendants. The real name is the Akmel O'odham, which means the people of the river. And they are most likely the descendants of the Hohokam. See, when the Hohokam culture, it disbanded in about 1425, we know there were 2 decades of drought followed by a flood. And that flood, so the drought, crops go down, people thin out and move out to different areas. The flood came down the Salt River and flooded in sand, filled in all those trunk canals with sand. And they couldn't dig the sand out fast enough to get back to reestablish the level of planting they had to sustain the population base that they had grown, that they had. The official number is about 65 to 70,000 Native Americans. However, when I talked to the city archaeologist Lorraine down there at the Pueblo Grande and start running the numbers, like, how do you dig this much How do you construct 50 to 70 foot canals that are 20 feet deep? Okay. The trunk canals alone are 54.6 million cubic yards of earth. That's 54.6 million truckloads.
Let
Right?
alone
The back of a
it's
pickup truck
like
is 1 cubic
some
yard.
crazy dense clay too, right? It's not just
Yes. Okay.
it's like forest soil.
No written language, no mathematics, no metallurgy skills, no wheel, and no pack animal. They supposedly took flat rocks and dug into the earth and moved it with baskets full of, or made from cactus fiber. That's how they say, to a perfect gradient of 3 to 4 feet per drop of drop per mile. Okay. The canals we have today from the Salt River Project that move water across Phoenix are built right on top of the old ones because we could not improve on the location of these canals. They had no sextons, they had no transits, they had no modern day equipment, no horses, yet they designed and built not a canal. Technically, it's an aqueduct system, not because canals have boats, but it's the most advanced hydrology engineering endeavor done in the Western world at the time.
And what were they making out of it in that area though? Not paper, obviously, if they weren't writing or doing anything.
Clothes.
No, they were clothing. It was for clothing.
Textiles.
Yeah. So what happened was, like, the Hohokam didn't die, but the culture died. The people moved on. So I have a few Hopi friends, and they're like, oh no, like quite a few of the Hohokam came up here. And some of them went up to and joined the Sinagwan culture. The Sinagwans, S-I-N Agua, without water, the without water people, named after the Sinagua Mountain, which is Humphreys Peak. The Spanish named it when they came to the 1500s because there was no water around it, right? They're up in the Verde Valley and then up onto the Colorado Plateau. And then there's the Mogollon culture off to like the northeast. And there's the Salado culture, which is due east of Phoenix, out towards Globe and Miami. That was the cosmopolitan. That was like a mixture of all those cultures, including the ones from Casa Grandes coming up from Mexico. They probably had some influence there as well. Then you had the Patayan culture along the Colorado River to the west. So people just kind of migrated out and just went different places. A few stayed, but the heyday, the culture, imagine like coming and just seeing a few little people living in a apocalyptic world room all around. That's kind of what Phoenix was when the Spanish came through to Phoenix. Then they went north and they found that the Agua Frian culture had died out. Then they went north up into the Verde Valley, Sedona, Prescott area, right? Found that that the Sinagwans, they left Montezuma's castle and Montezuma's cave, and all those ruins were all just completely empty. The whole central Arizona corridor was emptied out of people for the most part when the Spanish came through. I have theories on that. I think there was probably a disease. It comes with this perfect timing with the bubonic plague. I think there was transatlantic traffic that came across quite a bit more than we know today. And I think it's very possible, if not probable, that the bubonic plague made its way over here and started wiping people out. Why else would people move up to cliff dwellings? Why would you live in a cliff, right? You have to haul all your water up there. Your kids can fall off. Your elderly can't climb up there. You just sleep. It's a fortress. You're fortifying yourself. And if you are fortifying yourself against an enemy, and or a flood, but floods come and go. You wouldn't stay up there, right? We know that they lived in these things for semi extended periods of time. But think about it. If you were attacking my tribe and I built and we fortified ourselves 50, 60, 70 feet up on this, or 100 feet up on this cliff, all you got to do, man, is camp out. The human body dies in 3 days without water, right? And food. Yeah. We start negotiating real quick. The only reason you would be up there is to keep yourself safe from a very violent and very temporary threat. So I had a buddy in high school. He was working on a movie, and we were playing with that idea back in high school because we were talking about that. And he says, Cory, what if there's like an ancient zombie virus that made its way across the Southwest? and he wanted to make like an ancient Native American zombie movie. And they said that would totally explain the cliff dwellings. I'm like, fuck yeah, it would. So, but we never did it. So if you're out there and you make a movie, someone make that movie. I would love to watch it.
Man, I'm looking at this. If the Phoenix aqueducts, like, and it's really big, like, and very extensive. To think that you're building this with just rudimentary,
What about this theory? What about the Hohokam discovered these ancient canals the same way Jack Swilling discovered these ancient canals?
Very true.
And there was once a culture that lived in the Valley of the Sun, in the Shining Valley, that was a center of trade. Think about it, guys. Look at Phoenix, Arizona on a map. Okay.
Agree with you.
You have 6 rivers that dump into Phoenix. You got the Gila, the Salt, the Verde, Agua Fria, New River, and the Hacienda. And they put your hand up and add like a 6 finger right there. And they all go up and out. The Gila goes over 6 fingers.
Yeah.
Right. 6 fingers, man.
Yeah, maybe that's what they're really talking about. It's the 6-fingered, like.
What's
giants.
that? The giants had 6 fingers, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Maybe it's not actually a giant hand. Maybe it's showing you Phoenix in the 6 rivers.
Yeah. Yeah. But Phoenix sits at the base of the Rocky Mountains, right? Arizona is Arizona has more river frontage, more miles of river frontage than Alaska has ocean frontage.
Damn.
We have more rivers in this state than people even know. And because we're at the bottom of a drainage system off the Colorado plateau and off the Rocky Mountains, right? And it goes into Colorado, then down to the Yucatan Peninsula. So some rivers go up to the northwest corner, some go up to the Grand Canyon.
Is there any pyramids along the base of these rivers?
There are rumored to be.
The rivers?
There are some rumors up in the Verde Valley and up the Grand Canyon. Yes, there are rumors of that, but they never got tracked down. Some people swear to them. I haven't seen them, but they're gone now. But people say they were destroyed. But
that's cool.
If you're moving any goods or products down from the Great Plains, the Four Corners, or the northern cultures, you have to come to Phoenix, right? Because we live in the desert, and if you go across the open desert, you die. The Camino de Diablo between here and Mexico. You have to stick to the river systems. They are the highways. And once you get to Phoenix, all those rivers meet at a place called Tres Rios, which is about 10 miles west of downtown Phoenix. And they go to the Gila, and the Gila to the Colorado, and down to the Yucatan.
Gila monster.
Gila monster, right? Gila, Gila. So Phoenix, guys, is an epicenter of trade, geographically and naturally in the ancient world. Anything coming up from Mesoamerica has to go through Phoenix. Anything coming down from the Four Corners, the Great Plains, all those has to come down through Phoenix to get down to Mesoamerica. That would explain why maybe the Phoenicians, maybe someone older than the Phoenicians, the Minoans, maybe. We know the Minoans were in the Midwest mining copper all the way up there in Michigan, right? All that copper that's missing. They found Minoan ingots. There's been tons and tons of research done on that, and doctors and PhDs putting they have the evidence. It's like not even
I think Vikings were the first to have copper weapons.
They were up in the Northeast, the New England area. They say they didn't get very much further west than that. But then you have stories of like
Canada.
What's his name? Prince Madoc, right?
Yeah. Kentucky.
Prince Madoc with the blue-eyed, blonde-haired Native Americans in North Dakota. And guess who found them? Meriwether Lewis and Clark. Meriwether Lewis, the 33rd degree Scottish Rite Freemason hired by Jefferson to come across the country. He found blonde-haired, blue-eyed Indians that all died of smallpox shortly after. And they said that their great-great-great-grandfather came from across the great ocean to the east. And it was probably Prince Madoc that came over in 2 sets of 200 people each to start this new colony over here. The Americas are full of stories.
I know. It's great. We've been doing a couple months on ancient America. And then this month we're going to be doing like synchromystic lands of America. So that's why we wanted to get you on the show. I was looking up the Ho-Oh, like it sounds familiar to me because I played Pokemon, and in the Pokemon it's a phoenix. It's a Ho-Oh bird, And so I was looking it up, and it says the Ho-Oh bird is a mythical creature adapted from Chinese mythology that incorporates parts of the several creatures such as the rooster, mandarin duck, peacock, crane, and pheasant. The bird was misidentified as a phoenix or a flying turkey by Western consumers in the early 20th century. Ho birds are the main decorative element on phoenix ware vessels decorated with some Suki transfer print. But anyways, it comes from Chinese mythology, Ho-Oh, and there's a lot of stuff going on about maybe the Chinese being in California and in America in the early times. I know Gavin Mendes has a book called 1421 when China made it to America. So there might be an interesting connection there to follow too. Yeah.
Well, I can tell you there's a ton of those anchors they found off the coast of California going down into Mexico, because the Chinese use very distinctive anchors that were like wheels, right? They'd make a wheel out of it. They'd haul out the inside and they would just tie a rope on or a chain on it. And
yeah, like a weight, like for a barbell.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah.
No. It looked like a big washer, like a big, huge washer.
Yeah,
like a round, like a circle that had the inside cut out of it. So it was like a big, like a metal washer, but it was like a stone circle. Yeah.
Like when you lift weights on you put the weights on the bar.
Like bar weight. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So they found like
or a donut. What about a donut? Can I throw
there
a donut?
You go, donut.
Shape mix?
Donut.
There we go.
There you go. I'll tell you what a friend of mine found up in the Willamette Valley, the Big Sandy Valley. He showed me. I went in his house. He was an old timer, and he had an old sword he found up in a tree and a rifle leaning up against a tree. When he was, back in the 1940s and 50s up in the mountains up in the Aquarius Range and the Walpi Range. But he pulled these beads out, and he had hundreds of them on these strings, and they were about yay big, halfway between a clacker and a marble, and they had like these designs on them. I'm like, what is it? He's like, I don't know. He said, we found them up in a cave up. I said, where at? He goes, oh, it's north of here, up yonder in them our woods, And he said, I took them in the 70s and I mailed, I called the Smithsonian and they told me to mail a few in. So I mailed a few in and I got a phone call back. They tracked me down and said, do you have any more of these? He's like, nope, just those two. He said, he had hundreds of them. And he goes, well, we never seen them before. Can you... He said, okay, great. Can you send them back? He's like, no, we're going to hold on to these. And they took them. They wouldn't give them back even.
Fuckers.
So what they did is they took them to a rock and gem show, and they found a guy over there that deals in like pottery and carvings and weird stuff like that. They worked with him, and he said that they were Polynesian designs on these beads. Polynesian. And the guy looked at them. Wait for the cool part. He looked under a microscope. And within the bottom, imagine taking like a tip of a pen and carving into the bead, maybe a centimeter down. And that was the design. They were carved in, right? But in the bottom, in the floor of the groove, when you looked with a microscope, there was like microscopic laser etchings and writings in the groove in the bottom of it.
Whoa.
And I found this out 5 years after they found this out. And he said, yeah, so we found out that they were fake. I said, what? He goes, yeah, if they were real, they didn't have lasers back then. So, he just got rid of them. I'm like, what? He's going, he got rid of them. He said, oh, he just, he thought because there were microscopic laser etchings in the bottom of the floor of the groove that they were modern day fake, instead of thinking that maybe they were an ancient artifact that from a previous culture that had they found them buried in the back of a cave up there. So yeah. And they were Polynesian. They were found in the Big Sandy Valley in Western Arizona.
Seems like maybe a cache hoard that they stuck in the cave to preserve, and then shit happens, and then somebody, it's kind of like the Qumran caves where they found the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Right.
You don't know about some of this shit, man.
Well, if you want to
we don't know the
preserve
history of what really happened in America. So when you find shit like that, fucking, it could be anything.
Yeah, when archaeologists age things, they can reach into pack rat nests, right? And because pack rats will build pack rat nests in the back caves, and the cave can be there for 12,000 years. So you have a time capsule of organic material, carbon, animals that were alive then that aren't alive now, all kinds of shit, right? And it's like a time capsule. Well, people figured out that they can bury stuff. Pemmican buried in the back of a cave. It stays cool. It stays dry. Never gets wet. Never gets disturbed. And that if you want to preserve something, you bury it in the back of a cave at the very back at the bottom. And it's as long as it's dry cave, it's good for thousands and thousands of years. Absolutely.
Yeah, man. Fascinating. So good. Roman, did you have anything left to say?
I mean, yes, lots of things. This, I mean, but I guess, yeah, it's 2.5 hours. We can wrap it up, let people digest the goodness, and but maybe I'll say, maybe I'll ask if we already asked you earlier about paranormal experiences, but do you and or your fiance have any like ghost stories, any other paranormal stuff? I'm trying to get the paranormal juice, even if it's not your story.
Yeah.
Give me some little gravy.
I mean, everyone has paranormal stories. We're all spiritual. It's the metaphysical world. Everyone has them. I tell a story that happened to me. It's a true story. I was when we owned the gas station in Wickiup, I used to drive twice a week to Phoenix and deliver the cash and come home. And I was coming back late. I used to stay and talk to my parents till 11 o'clock, then drive the 2.5 hours back home. So I would often be driving at midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. and get home late. And back then on that Highway 93, there was no one on it. I mean, I wouldn't see people pass me for 5-10 minutes on a highway going across the desert. And there was nobody behind me. Oftentimes there's nobody, there's no lights, and it's one of the most rural parts of the entire state. And it was a night like that. This is back in 1998. There's a place called Burrow Creek. It's about 15 miles south of Wickiup. And there used to be, it's not there anymore. They redid the bridge. They built a new side of the bridge, and they tore it down. But there was a rest stop, right? A very dangerous rest stop to get to. You cross the bridge and you have to slow down within 50 yards and hang a sharp right into this little tiny thing before the oncoming traffic ran into you from the back, coming off this massive, huge bridge spanning a 600-foot freaking canyon. And it's gnarly. And good thing they took it out, because I've almost people wrecked there. But anyway, I pulled over there, and it overlooked it was really cool rest stop, because you could get out there and walk around and overlook the entire campground at the bottom, and this whole huge valley, the Arastra Mountains off to the south, the Greenwood Peak off to the west. And it's a massive, and you're right there on the edge of this canyon, and the bridge, you can see the whole bridge because you're kind of lower and the traffic coming by. It's a really neat spot. And I was there with my dog, Chacho. Chacho's my dog. He's my lab, a pit bull lab mix. And I had a knife. It was a bigger SOG knife that I just keep it just tucked in the front of my pants there. And I was sitting there at probably 1:30 in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, somewhere like that. It was a 3/4 moon night. I remember the moon because of what happened next. But I'm standing out there, and things get really weird and quiet, and the bats stop, and everything gets quiet, and the bugs stop. And I'm like, what? This is really bizarre. And I look around for Chacho, and he's under the truck. I'm like, what are you doing? And I get that, when the hair raises up and something's bad, and you're just waiting for the bullet to hit or something to, you're waiting for what is going to happen. And I'm looking out, and I'm looking down, and I'm looking for snakes. I'm looking for coyotes. I'm looking for, whatever. And I just so happened to turn around and look up to my left, and something was bearing down on me. And I did martial arts for years when I was a kid, like 8 years. And the first thing you learn in Aikido is how to fall. The second thing you learn is how to roll, right? Because you're going to get your ass kicked. You got to learn how to fall, how to roll, and how to take a punch. That's before you start throwing punches. You got to learn those 3 things if you're to survive getting punched. And I instinctively saw this thing coming, And I basically just went down and I did a left shoulder front roll. And as I rolled and came back up, this thing just passed right over me. And I heard it wearing clothing. You know, the sound that a flag makes when it whips in the wind?
Yeah.
Or you stick a flag out of a truck window and the whipping noise. That's the noise it made. And I came up onto my feet and I grabbed my knife and I stood there for a second. Like I thought, bird, vulture, owl, my mind's going there first. And I'm looking at it, and then I'm processing this thing. It all happened within 2 or 3 seconds, and it went up at a 45-degree angle to the ground, probably about maybe 25 yards out, something like that, 30 yards out. Stopped, hovered, turned around, and just stared straight back at me. And it was wearing a black cloak / hood thing. Like it was all wearing a black thing. Then the only thing I can describe it as, like the only thing I can just describe it as, in the Lord of the Rings, those black things that wear the robes that ride the what?
Wraiths.
Wraiths, yeah. The only thing, but only not so big and no red eyes. And it's like a smaller version, probably like maybe somewhere between probably a 4.5 foot entity, creature, person, something like that. And it stood there, and I remember screaming something like, "Come on, mother ever," whatever I screamed. I can't remember what I screamed. And I looked back, and my dog's just like under the truck, right, just shaking still. And I kind of look, and I look at my truck, and I'm gauging steps and distance, and I'm like, what my next move is. I'm in full on war mode here, and I know that my pistol was on the in the truck, and just then it turns to the west, kind of southwest, and goes straight towards Greenwood Peak, and just floated off rather speedily. It started. It didn't just like jet like a UFO did. It started out kind of slow and then took off. It wasn't flapping. It just floated and moved. And I took a few steps backwards and turned around and bolted for my truck, looking, thinking, it was going to come at me again. And I turned the truck, and I was driving. I was driving I think it was my old pickup. I had like a 72 Chevy that I bought for like $3,000, and came was like a full size custom deluxe Chevy, right? The 350, one of those big trucks. That's what I was driving that night.
Nice.
And I pulled back on the highway, and I hauled ass back home, and I called my buddy, one of my best friends from school, and he's like a big time evangelical Christian. And he'll tell you the same story. I called him up hysterical at like 2:30 in the morning and say, "Dude, what do you know about demons? I think I just saw a demon. I was attacked by a demon." And that's the true story. That happened. And when I start learning about that bridge, there's a guy named Rick who drowned directly below that bridge. There's a hole. I say a hole, but the creek comes through. But in the creek, there's a hole that goes 30 feet straight down. And his horse, he was leading a bull out of the canyon there, and he had it dallied up to his saddle, and the bull crossed behind him, and it knocked him off his horse. He was wearing his chaps and his gun and his slicker, his trench coat. It was wintertime. He couldn't swim, and he sunk to the bottom and drowned. He died there. I almost drowned a couple years later there as well. I was crossing, and I was coming up. I was on a solo hike with Chacho and my other dog Puppy. I was coming out of that canyon, the same canyon right below there. And I was coming out, and my foot slipped, and I had my backpack on, and my face went down right here and hit a rock. I knocked myself out, and with my backpack on, and I woke up when I was sliding into the water right there. And I kind of like, whoa, and I got up, and I rolled, and I got myself out, and I took a break. And I was sitting there. This is like 3 years after this, and it's a true story. I swear to God, it's true. And I looked, while they were building that second bridge spanning, and I looked up, and the construction had been going on that bridge. Because when they build a bridge, they start from both sides, and they kind of build out to the middle, right, on these big bridges. And I saw what looked like, I thought, a construction worker, but it was a Sunday. I remember it was Sunday, and I'm looking at, and I saw someone out there, and I waved. So I'm thinking it's just after I almost drowned, right? I almost just drowned. And I'm laying there trying to get my breath. My dog's licking my face. That's kind of what woke me up, and sliding into the water. And I see this person on the edge of the bridge out there, which is probably about a good 60 feet, maybe 60 feet into the canyon at that point, but it's, it's like a unfinished part of the bridge. And it crouches down and just sits there, kind of like it's on its haunches, and it's just staring at me. I don't know.
Fuck
I
no.
I don't know. And
Absolutely not.
I looked at it and I didn't move, and I'm thinking, okay, hopefully it didn't see me. But I see it. It stared. It went on probably about 3 or 4 minutes, and I got up and I started walking down the, towards the campground. Someone told me that in that area there is an old burial ground, a native burial ground. Not that native burial grounds are any more creepy than regular burial ground. Everyone has this thing about Native American burial grounds and or this haunted place. Well, Earth is haunted. Like Earth, the whole Earth. People have been dying all over, buried all over forever. Yeah. Earth is haunted, people. It's not just ancient sacred burial grounds. It's your local burial grounds, or
they're all ancient and sacred. Activity.
Yes, everything is, of every race, of every nationality, of every time. It's all energy. Get out of the woo-woo. There's real stuff everywhere. So that happened. There's one of my paranormal.
Have you gone back? Because you went back after seeing it the first time.
Yeah, I've been back.
You've been back.
Alicia and I took her back. We did a video. It's on my website where we went out there at the middle of the night to go demon hunting. And I went out there to go call that sucker up. I went out there to go out there and pick a fight with that fucking thing.
Yeah.
And it didn't come out. It didn't come out that night.
It knew better.
We camped down at the campground, and we drove up there and we filmed, and we were right there in that old parking lot that I was on, and we were taking photographs and different spectrums of light, seeing what we could see for about 3 hours up there. It was cold. My God, it was cold that night. And we did a whole video on that, and we might go up and do it again. It's a really lonely, dark place on the highway.
Wow.
But yeah, maybe we'll go out this summer and do it again.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, dude.
That's a good one. I've never heard anything like that before. That's the first for me.
It's true, man. There's no reason to make something like that up.
No, that's great. Didn't say I didn't believe you.
Yeah, right, Dan.
That's
you're
awesome.
A disbeliever. Come on, walk the line.
Am I?
Walk the line. Let's go. No, of course not,
up,
Dan.
Roman.
Hey, come on, jeez. Just joking, bro.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Oh man. Well, thank you so much, Cory. We appreciate
your time. Thanks for having me. Thanks for going for reaching out and finding me, man. And it's a pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks for going overtime with us, man.
Cool.
We appreciate it.
I do 6 hour streams regularly, man. This is nothing. This is like nothing. I can go on forever.
All right, man. Well, thank you anyway, again and again. Tell people where they can go find you at and check out your material, man.
Yeah, so it's the Phoenix Enigma, ENIGMA, thephoenixenigma.com. That's my website. You can go on Google, just type me in. You're going to find, I think I have Instagram under that name. My Facebook has been canceled. My YouTube's been canceled. My Patreon's been canceled. That's how you know I'm a real truther, guys. I'm one of the guys that's been canceled everywhere. But my website's up and running. If you're interested in the Isaac Cappy stuff, just type in the Isaac Cappy mind map, or go to the front page of my website and scroll down to the Isaac Cappy mind map and click there. It's all there. I have on my website, I have stuff on de-occulting, occulted studies, science speculation, the deep desert, Phoenix, and some of the people that are here. I need to flesh out more of that stuff and add to it. Number studies, numerology, and videos. You can go see all my videos. Some of the better ones are actually archived on my website and on Brighteon, my guest appearances, so stuff like that. And if you go on Google, never mind all the crazy shit people say about me, a lot of disinformation and a lot of attempted character assassination from the Isaac Cappy study, investigation. There's just the worst humans came out with the craziest stuff. And for some reason, YouTube, if you get on their bad side, they'll keep up the videos that, talk trash about you, but not the ones where you're telling the truth and trying to clear your name. And it's so much garbage out there, but they tried to discredit the Isaac Cappy stuff by discrediting me because I did the investigation. So you're gonna see a lot of garbage on me about that. But it is what it is. So the truth will prevail. You stay in the light, and you keep saying the truth, and you'll eventually come out on the right side. That's how it works.
Excellent. Thank you, man. Thank you, Fire Tribe, for listening. If you're not down with that,
Wake
up.
up.